Chapter 909. On the third day after the sword competition, Huang Xiaoyun and the other four sword cultivators arrived in the sky above the Valley of Swords under the lead of the white-haired old man. The entrance was already open, and everyone could faintly feel the sharpness. The white-haired old man said, "I will open the entrance again in 3 days. If you come out late, the sharpness will increase by more than 10 times. If it's light, your consciousness will be severely damaged. If it's heavy, your consciousness will be confused. Remember this." With a wave of his hand, the Heavenly Sword Gate's disciples rushed into the Valley of Swords on their flying swords. Huang Xiaoyun, on the other hand, controlled his flying artifact to follow behind them. The four sword cultivators from the Heavenly Rapier sect hurriedly flew to the ground as soon as they entered the Valley of Swords. They spread out their consciousness and felt the sharpness around them as if they were choosing a suitable spot. Only one of them was in the late stage of Foundation Establishment. The other three were in the Great Circle of Foundation Establishment. Their metal-type mana was very sharp, but they lacked an opportunity to form the mark of sword intent. This opportunity was the sharpness. The Valley of Swords was filled with rich metal-type spiritual energy. The spiritual energy contained sharpness. They could attract the metal-type spiritual energy and gather the sharpness around their bodies. They could feel the true meaning within and find the opportunity to form the mark of sword intent. This kind of understanding also had a great risk. If they accidentally absorbed the spiritual energy here into their bodies, the sharpness would severely damage their meridians. If they accidentally absorbed it into their dantian, it was very likely that their cultivation would be destroyed. In order to reduce the risk, they had to choose a suitable spot according to the sword marks on the ground and find the balance of sharpness. As long as they found a suitable area, they could maintain a stable sharpness around their bodies. Through the fine control of the metal-type spiritual energy, they could find the opportunity. Huang Xiaoyun landed on the ground and looked curiously at the sword marks on the ground. These sword marks were messy and disorderly, as if they were casually created by a powerhouse. The sharpness of the entire Valley of Swords came from the sword marks. This attribute was even higher than sword intent. After so many years, it did not weaken at all. This showed how terrifying this powerhouse was. Huang Xiaoyun closed his eyes and felt the intense sharpness. The metal elemental mana in his body seemed to be somewhat active. He muttered, "The sharpness is indeed extraordinary. I seem to have a new understanding of the art of sword control." Then, he distanced himself from the other disciples and found a place where the sharpness was dense. The sword in his hand flashed, as if he was using the most basic imperial sword technique of the Sky Rapier sect. The sword manipulation technique is a technique that can completely unleash the power of the metal element and the power of the sword. If one cultivates the sword manipulation technique to a certain level, one can even unleash sword chi through the use of sword-type artifacts. Although Huang Xiaoyun's spiritual roots were not high, he had the demonic gold body, and his control of metal attribute magic power was extremely precise. He was already proficient in the ordinary sword controlling technique, but he did not want to use it to control any swordsmanship magic tools. The cultivation of a body cultivator was to temper the body. If he used the sword intent core condensation method to enter the bone treasure stage, then his future cultivation would be to cultivate his bones into a sword-down magic treasure. No, it should be said that he would refine all the long bones into sword bones. The target of the sword manipulation technique would be his own sword bones. After obtaining the sword intent core condensation method, Huang Xiaoyun specially studied the sword-type artifacts of the Sky Rapier sect. He discovered that the reason why the sword manipulation technique could be used on the sword and unleash the sharpness of metal attribute magic power was because of a special miniature array on the artifact. This miniature array perfectly connected metal attribute magic power and swordsmanship magic tools. If one was proficient in the sword manipulation technique, they could even use the artifact to unleash powerful sword chi. After discovering this, Huang Xiaoyun immediately had a bold idea. His master Lu Kuan, because of his hidden spiritual roots engraved a spirit-controlling array on his bones when he reached the great circle of body tempering. However, Huang Xiaoyan had the demonic gold body, and his control of metal attribute magic power was extremely strong. The spirit-controlling array was completely superfluous. Why couldn't he engrave this unique sword manipulation array on his bones? The strength of his bones at the great circle of body tempering was not inferior to any magic tool. Therefore, Huang Xiaoyan went to consult Zhu Siming and Qin Yushu. With their help, he spent half a year to engrave the sword manipulation array on all the long bones in his body. When Zhu Siming was in the Yang clan, his ability to engrave miniature arrays was well known far and wide. Now that he had entered the middle core formation stage, he was even more proficient in this tool refining technique. He modified the sword manipulation array according to the size of each long bone and the direction of force exerted by the skeletal muscles, making it more suitable for the bones. Even Lu Kuan was far inferior to this level of tool refining technique. During the sword competition, Huang Xiaoyan's sword manipulation technique was very shoddy. This was because he had modified it in an attempt to find the trick to controlling the bones. Qi. Suddenly, a light sword qi shot out from Huang Xiaoyan's pinky finger. However, it dissipated after a distance of 3 meters. It seemed to be very weak. Huang Xiaoyan looked at the small, bloody hole on the tip of his pinky finger. His face was full of surprise. Under the encirclement of the sharpness intent, Huang Xiaoyan gradually found the trick to the sword manipulation technique. He had just activated the magic power in his pinky finger. He condensed the sword manipulation array on the joints of his fingers into a line and shot out the sword qi. Because the magic power in his pinky finger was very weak, the sword qi's power was very weak. If it wasn't for the sharpness intent in the surroundings that strengthened the sword qi's sharpness, it probably wouldn't even have been able to cut through the flesh of his fingertip. After pondering for a while, Huang Xiaoyan raised his right arm. His entire arm emitted a vigorous wave of metal attribute magic power. His muscles intertwined, and a large amount of blood vessels emerged. Boom! An extremely condensed sword qi shot out from his pinky finger and fiercely bombarded the ground in front of him. It created a small hole. The flesh of his pinky finger was completely destroyed, revealing the eerie white bone. Huang Xiaoyan revealed an excited expression. Master is right. When the bones are connected together, they are naturally embedded magic treasures. When the bones of my right arm combine, it is equivalent to a combined sword-type magic treasure. The power of this sword qi is even comparable to a level 3 spiritual immortal treasure. It's just that the magic power consumption is too great. Then the qi and blood in his body surged. The missing flesh on his pinky finger quickly recovered. The metal attribute magic power in his body surged again. Streaks of sword qi of various sizes shot out from his fingertips and flew in all directions. The 4 sword cultivators of the Heavenly Rapier sect were all focused on comprehending the sword will. No one paid attention to this. If they saw this scene, they would probably think that Huang Xiaoyan had comprehended the sword will. The Heavenly Rapier sect's sword qi theurgy could only be used by Foundation establishment disciples with their swords. As for creating sword qi out of thin air, other than core formation sword cultivators, only Foundation establishment sword cultivators who had comprehended the sword will could do so. After about a quarter of an hour, Huang Xiaoyan wiped the sweat from his forehead. His face was still filled with excitement. The magic power in his body was twice that of a Great Circle Foundation establishment cultivator. In this short period of time, he had completely comprehended the essence of the art of sword control. He could control the bones in his body. If not for the special environment here, Huang Xiaoyan even wanted to experience the pleasure of flying in the air. Next is to comprehend the sword will and condense the sword mark. Huang Xiaoyan had already thought a method. In an environment filled with sharpness, the Heavenly Rapier sect disciples' chances of comprehending the sword were still so low. This was because this energy was too sharp and could easily damage their weak meridians and dantian. Even the green essence sword wine made by a nascent soul cultivator couldn't damage my body. This is just metal attribute spirit chi that contains sharpness. I'll use it to cleanse my body. I don't believe that I can't find the opportunity to condense the sword mark. P.S. Cough cough. Last week's 10 chapters mission is only now completed. Continue this week. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 9-10. The Ancestor of Body Cultivators. Awkward, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 9-11. On the Heavenly Sword Peak, Lu Kuan and Yu Longfei sat in the pavilion and talked to each other. Generally speaking, when nascent soul cultivators gathered together, they would exchange their cultivation experiences and verify with each other. They would often solve some doubts in the cultivation process. If they were lucky, it would even be equivalent to decades of hard work. However, Lu Kuan's body refinement technique was a self-contained system that was completely out of the scope of ordinary cultivators. He and Yu Longfei had almost no common language in cultivation. Therefore, he and the Heavenly Sword Sect's great elder talked about some secrets that only nascent soul cultivators in Wei country knew. Yu Longfei said, "The Shangqing sect is a branch of the Xian sect of the state of Zhou. Thousands of years ago, many nascent soul cultivators emerged from the sect and quickly unified Zhongzhou. It has something to do with the Xian sect." Lu Kuan revealed a look of realization and said, "In that case, the nascent soul and core formation cultivators of the Shangqing sect all disappeared and returned to the Xian sect?" Yu Longfei nodded and said, "Yes, since the Shangqing sect's strength expanded, the Xian sect let them return to the main sect. However, the Shangqing sect was very powerful in Wei country and had abundant resources. They were comfortable being the local tyrant and were unwilling to leave. Until the war in Wei country many years ago, the Shangqing sect was forced to return to the main sect under the pressure of our sects and old demon pang of the blood-refining sect." Yu Longfei sighed and said, "With the addition of the Shangqing sect, the Xian sect had a total of 3 great cultivators and nearly 30 nascent soul cultivators. Its strength increased greatly, and it rose from the 5th sect of the state of Zhou to the 4th. Although the high-level cultivators of the Shangqing sect were strictly restricted by the sect, they also obtained many top-secret techniques of the Xian sect. It could be said that they had both good and bad luck." After hearing these words, Lu Kuan was shocked and said, "The Xian sect has so many nascent soul cultivators and is only ranked 4th. The cultivation sect of the state of Zhou is actually so powerful." Yu Longfei sighed and said, "The Great Zhou State is located to the north of the Heavenly River in the state of Qi. It is extremely vast. The state of Chu, the state of Qi, and the state of Wei added together is not even 20 to 30% of its territory. There are many cultivation sects in the Great Zhou country, and the top 10 sects can be traced back to ancient times. It can be said that the top 3 sects of the Great Zhou country all have spirit-severing cultivators, and their strength is incomparably terrifying." Lu Kuan was speechless. He had searched Bai Yongkai's soul and knew that the Great Zhou dynasty was vast and rich in resources. However, he didn't expect the strength of the immortal cultivation sects there to be so terrifying. There were even several soul formation stage cultivators. It could be seen that he had only come into contact with a very small part of the cultivation world. He asked curiously, "Brother Yu, if the Great Zhou dynasty is already so powerful, then to the north of the Great Zhou dynasty, is there an even more powerful country of cultivators?" Yu Longfei said, "To the north of the Great Zhou dynasty is an area filled with cracks in space. It is called the Shattered Kingdom. I heard that to the north of the Shattered Kingdom, there is an even more vast land of extreme cold." Lu Kuan asked, "The Shattered Kingdom, what is that?" Yu Longfei slowly said, "I have traveled to the Great Zhou dynasty before. It is said that it was the battlefield of the ancient cultivators and the demon race. After repelling the demon race, the Yi Yuan school led the other sects to use heavenly methods to completely seal the cracks in space. After that, a large number of cracks in space appeared in that area. Lu Kuan's expression changed and said, according to Lu's knowledge, the Yuan school was the main force in the battle against the demon race. It was almost the strongest cultivation sect at that time. They seem to have disappeared along with it. Yu Longfei sighed and said, it is said that the Yuan country, where the Yuan school was located, was also affected by the cracks in space when the demon race sealed the space. The entire Yuan country and the ancient battlefield became a shattered kingdom. Lu Kuan's expression changed, and he recalled Hong Yuntian's notes. According to the notes, when the Hong brothers created their own body refining techniques, they defeated the demon race and sealed the cracks in space. At that time, the Yuan school had not yet disappeared. In addition to arranging for the disciples to study the corpses of the demon race and trying to create body refining techniques, the elders of the school seemed to be busy with an important matter. The disappearance of the Yuan school certainly had nothing to do with the sealing of the demon race. Lu Kuan had a faint premonition that this shattered kingdom contained the secret of the Yuan school's disappearance. He asked again, the shattered kingdom is not only an ancient battlefield, but also the Yuan school's encampment. Even if it is very dangerous, there should be nascent soul stage cultivators taking the risk. Yu Longfei said, the edge of the shattered kingdom is full of huge cracks in space. Even spirit-severing stage seniors would find it difficult to enter, let alone nascent soul stage cultivators. However, every 500 years, the cracks in the shattered kingdom will shrink for 5 years. Cultivators can take advantage of this opportunity to enter. Although there aren't any large spatial cracks, there are countless invisible spatial cracks in the broken country. Only the spiritual sense of a nascent soul cultivator can detect them. If a core-bearing cultivator doesn't have a powerful detection ability, it's almost a certain death. Yu Longfei's eyes revealed a bit of regret. 300 years ago, the shattered kingdom opened. I had just entered the nascent soul stage, and my sect's previous head elder was near the end of his life. He did not dare to take the risk. If I were to unfortunately die, the Heavenly Sword sect would not have a nascent soul stage sword cultivator. The sect would not be far from being destroyed. Lu Kuan was now also the head of a sect. He somewhat sympathized with Yu Longfei and said, Brother Yu, this is a wise decision. Yu Longfei sighed. Wei's nascent soul stage cultivators all think this way, except for Shi Jingtian. Old Devil Shi? Yu Longfei said, 300 years ago, Old Devil Shi was still at the peak of the nascent soul stage. He actually dared to bring a few core bearing stage cultivators into the Shattered Kingdom. Shi Jingtian and the others may have obtained a treasure that is very helpful in forming the nascent soul. If not for the exposure of the Yang clan's battle, the rest of the sects would not even know that Fairy Feng and Zhang Lingfeng had entered the nascent soul stage. Including Yu Lianxing and Shi Jingtian, there are a total of 4 nascent soul stage cultivators. When Lu Kuan heard these names, his eyes turned cold. So the miraculous gate has such opportunities. Brother Yu, I will go to the Qi Kingdom soon and think of a way. At this moment, Lu Kuan and Yu Longfei turned their heads at the same time and looked in the direction of the Valley of Swords. There, the metal element's spiritual energy surged violently, and an extremely sharp aura of mana surged out from the Valley of Swords. Yu Longfei nodded his head lightly and revealed a satisfied expression. This batch of disciples is not bad. Someone has already comprehended the sword will on the second day. Lu Kuan frowned slightly and seemed a little unhappy. Yu Longfei smiled. Master Lu, do not mind. Your disciple did not cultivate the Heavenly Rapier Sect's foundation establishment technique. Even if he has a special spiritual body, it will be difficult. Halfway through his words, another aura of the sword will emerge from the Valley of Swords. Yu Longfei's eyes shone with surprise. There are actually 2 of them. This batch of disciples is indeed stronger than the previous batch. Just as he finished speaking, the 3rd aura of the sword was shot into the sky. Yu Longfei stood up excitedly. 3 disciples comprehended the sword will. This not only meant that they could enter the core bearing stage, it also meant that the three of them would have a higher chance of forming the nascent soul. He, Dugu Fong, and even the previous nascent soul stage cultivators of the Heavenly Rapier sect were all in the late foundation establishment stage. They comprehended the sword will through the Valley of Swords. Boom! The spiritual energy outside the Valley of Swords surged violently, and the fourth aura of the sword will burst out. What? Yu Longfei's body began to tremble. His eyes were filled with ecstasy. The four of them have all comprehended the sword will. Is this the sign of the rise of my Heavenly Rapier sect? Just as he was extremely excited, the fifth aura of the sword will came out from the Valley of Swords. Yu Longfei's face stiffened as he suddenly felt that something was wrong. How did this brat from the body, refining pavilion, comprehend the sword will? Did something happen in the Valley of Swords? The thought flashed through his mind. The sharp intent in the Valley of Swords fluctuated again, and the sixth aura of the sword will shot into the sky. Yu Longfei revealed a look of disbelief as he cried out, "How is this possible? There are only 5 people. How can there be 6 auras of the sword will?" Chapter 9:12. Huang Xiaoyan sat cross-legged in a corner of the Valley of Swords. His entire body was filled with an incomparably sharp aura. An astonishing sword intent was emitted from 6 positions on his body. The 4 Heavenly Rapier sect disciples in the distance were stunned. They looked in the direction of Huang Xiaoyan in a daze. The area where Huang Xiaoyan was filled with an extremely sharp aura. If they were to comprehend the sword intent there, their meridians would be damaged and their cultivation would be crippled. Who knew that Huang Xiaoyan, who appeared out of nowhere, would not only condense 1 sword intent imprint, but he also condensed 6 sword intent imprints one after another. This was simply unheard of. Could it be that this person had 6 stanchions? In addition to the strong sword intent, they could also feel the other party's dense spiritual power. It was far beyond the great circle of foundation establishment. If Huang Xiaoyan was a core formation stage sword cultivator, they would believe it. Just as the 4 disciples stood up and headed to Huang Xiaoyan's position, the restriction above the Valley of Swords suddenly opened. 2 blurry figures appeared at the entrance. They seemed to be talking about something. After a while, one of the figures landed in the Valley of Swords like lightning. He brought Huang Xiaoyan out and left the Valley of Swords. Then, an angry voice sounded in the ears of the 4 sword cultivator disciples. Comprehend well. If no one can condense sword intent by the 3rd day, you don't have to come out. Feeling this unfathomable divine sense, the disciples trembled and hurriedly returned to their positions. They calmed their minds and continued to comprehend the sharp aura around them. Huang Xiaoyan maintained his cross-legged position. He was wrapped in an invisible force field and stuck close to Lu Kuan's back. This pair of master and disciple were already far away from the Heavenly Rapier sect. Huang Xiaoyan was sweating profusely. His body was filled with a violent, sharp aura. His entire body was trembling. It was as if there were countless small snakes swimming under his skin. Previously in the Valley of Swords, he crazily absorbed the sharp aura and combined it with his comprehension of the sword controlling technique. After spending 2 days, he finally found the opportunity to condense sword intent. Huang Xiaoyan used the metal attribute imprint as a foundation to condense 6 sword intent imprints on his upper arm, thigh, sternum, and spine. But who would have thought that as soon as the sword intent was successfully condensed, his metal elemental physical dermic powers received a certain sublimation, and his aura changed drastically. His muscles, bones, and internal organs had all become incomparably sharp, crazily attacking his physical body. If he had not completed the internal organ condensation technique and strengthened his internal organs would have been severely damaged. Huang Xiaoyan quickly transferred his internal organs' dermic powers to his muscles and bones. The incomparably dense dermic powers of the sword filled his bones and muscles. His bones were fine, but the pressure on his muscles was greatly increased. With a chi sound, The skin on his forearm suddenly cracked open, and a sword chi shot out from the broken flesh, melting into the surrounding origin energy field. As if a gate had been opened, Huang Xiaoyun's skin ruptured one after another, exploding with several bloody holes. Sharp sword chi rushed out. Huang Xiaoyun's face paled. He gritted his teeth and said, "Master, my current physical body is unable to withstand such sharp dermic powers. I must immediately break through and condense my core and melt my bones." Lu Kuan nodded with a serious expression. His enormous divine sense probed the surroundings. His figure flashed, and he brought Huang Xiaoyun to a remote mountain range. Lu Kuan clenched his fist, and an enormous void force blasted forward, creating a cave that was 10 feet long. Hundreds of mid-grade spirit stones were tossed out, and a simple spirit gathering formation was set up. Then, he threw Huang Xiaoyun in. With Lu Kuan personally protecting him, Huang Xiaoyun immersed his entire mind into his body. His blood flowed faster, revealing his powerful blood chi. The extremely violent and sharp dermic powers, under the mediation of the blood, condensed towards the 6 sword intent imprints on the bones. The pressure on the muscles was greatly reduced, and the flesh stopped cracking. Under the nourishment of the blood, the wounds began to heal. Lu Kuan stood not far away. Feeling the extremely sharp dermic powers, he was amazed. One must know that when Lu Kuan condensed the 6th Thunder Seal, his complete body-tempering body could completely withstand it. Now that Huang Xiaoyun had condensed the 6 sword intent imprints, his body was on the verge of breaking. It could be seen that the dermic powers of the sword intent were even stronger than the thunder attribute dermic powers. This kid is decisive enough. In his current physical body, only the bones can withstand the dermic powers of the sword intent. If he doesn't condense his core and melt his bones to break through to the bone treasure stage, his flesh and blood will completely explode. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a golden light as he observed the situation in Huang Xiaoyun's body. With the 6 sword intent imprints, the dermic powers of the physical body, under the coagulation of the blood, smoothly entered the imprints on the bones. At the same time, the blood faintly emitted a pale white halo. Every 5 portions of dermic powers passed through the blood and the sword intent imprints, fusing into dermic powers in the bones. The whole process seemed to be very smooth, without the slightest feeling of stagnation. It was as if the dermic powers had automatically crystallized. Lu Kuan let out a sigh of relief. The pale white halo in the blood was very likely related to Huang Xiaoyun's demonic gold body. The combination of the constitution and the sword intent greatly increased the chances of condensing his core and melting his bones. Next, he sat cross-legged at the entrance of the cave, personally guarding Huang Xiaoyun. He had sent your Ener back to the temporary camp a few days ago. With the addition of the black tortoise from the spirit transformation sect, he shouldn't have to worry about the body refining pavilion. Lu Kuan pondered as he felt Huang Xiaoyun's aura. Body tempering great circle is unable to withstand the 6 sword intent imprints. However, if there are only 1 or 2 sword intent imprints, body tempering and blood condensation body cultivators should be able to withstand it. If a disciple who cultivates the essence gold body refining art comprehends sword intent in the bone tempering stage, with the help of the dermic powers of the sword intent, not only will their battle prowess explosively increase, but their body refining speed will also increase. The ancient sword cultivators mentioned by Yu Longfei comprehended sword intent in the early foundation establishment stage through the sword nurturing art. Their attack power in the late foundation establishment stage is incomparably terrifying. They can even kill core formation stage cultivators. If a body refining pavilion disciple condenses a sword intent imprint in the bone tempering stage, then in the viscera forging stage, they can rely on 4 or more sword intent imprints to achieve this. Thinking of this, Lu Kuan frowned. Regardless of whether he forcefully subdued the heavenly sword sect in the future or not, he must obtain the sword nurturing art. He had communicated with Yu Longfei before and knew that the sword nurturing art was extremely unique. It used a special method to nurture a magic tool, and at the same time, the sharpness of the magic tool could be used to supplement the body and strengthen one's dermic powers. If he could obtain this sword-nurturing art and integrate it into the body-refining art, then a body cultivator in the bone-tempering stage would be able to nurture their body as a sword. Their chances of comprehending sword intent would definitely be higher than any ancient sword cultivator. From the bone-tempering stage to laying the foundation, one could gradually develop one's body into a powerful sword treasure, or rather a sword body. This could be said to be a new body-refining art. Sword body refining art. Lu Kuan looked at Huang Xiaoyan, who was trying his best to break through. His eyes were full of anticipation. The bone treasure stage is the bone tempering stage. Unlike me, this kid doesn't need to inscribe any hardening arrays in the future. What he really needs is a sharpness array to fully display the powerful attack power of the sword body. Lu Kuan knew in his heart that his strength was astonishing, and he also had the arm connection technique. Only by inscribing a hardening array would his bones be able to withstand his terrifying physical strength. At the same time, another function of the hardening array was to resist the powerful destructive force. Lu Kuan relied on the talent of a 9-star physique to cultivate the blood demon force of the core formation middle stage in the bone treasure stage. Thanks to the hardening array, he could successfully cultivate the blood demon bone refining art and accelerate the tempering of the bone treasure. Huang Xiaoyan was different from him. His physical strength was much weaker. A 5-star physique could only cultivate the blood demon force of the core formation early stage. The hardening array's effect was extremely low. It was better to inscribe a sharpness array and display the power of the sword treasure to the extreme. Chapter 9:13. On the left side of the Valley of the Body Refining Pavilion, there was a cave where the earth fire was placed. At this moment, intermittent hammering sounds could be heard. There were 2 mortal martial artists in the earth fire cave. They were both draped in fiery red cloaks. One of them was a bald man with a bare upper body. His muscles were bulging, and he was currently brandishing a sledgehammer, hammering something. The other man was short, but he was bulging with bulging muscles. His body was about the same height as his height. He looked like a bulky meatball. He stood in the distance and looked at the bald man nervously. In front of them, a huge furnace sat in the middle of the cave. It was emitting a shocking amount of heat. The shape of the furnace was very strange. The middle of the furnace was like a teapot. There were 8 long mouths, each of which was different. The smallest was as small as a finger, and the largest was as big as a watermelon. At the top of the furnace, there was a thick silver chain. It went around a gear and was tied to the bottom of a turntable by the wall. Other than the furnace, there was a 3-foot-wide gray rock beside it. One of the mouths of the furnace was shooting hot flames at the rock. Below the flames were 3 semicircular grooves. 2 of the grooves were filled with red and white liquids. The air above the liquids was distorted. Obviously, they were in a state of high temperature. As for the last groove, there was a fist-sized black rock in it. The bald man was swinging his sledgehammer and hammering the rock rhythmically. As time passed, the black rock gradually turned into liquid under the heavy hammering and burning of the flames. Seeing this, the middle-aged man put down his sledgehammer and touched a mechanism at the edge of the gray rock. A gap appeared at the edge of the 3 circular grooves. The 3 liquids flowed into an oval groove in the middle. This oval groove looked very delicate. It was filled with all kinds of patterns. The bald man's bell-like voice rang out, "Brother Gua, turn the furnace. Fire mouth number 5. Okay." The short man stood beside the turntable and immediately pulled the handle. With a heavy creaking sound, the fire mouth in the middle of the furnace stopped shooting out flames and then began to turn. Crack! The fire mouth was bigger than the previous one. It aimed at the gray rock and spewed out even hotter flames. The bald man said in a deep voice, "Brother Gua, use the secret technique of the soul sensing art to help me." The short man walked behind the bald man with a serious look on his face. His spiritual sense which was at the middle stage of the chi refining stage, came out of his body and emitted a unique wave of energy. It intertwined with the bald man's spiritual sense. After the two middle chi refining stage divine senses merged, they actually reached the late chi refining stage. A few streaks of blood appeared in the bald man's eyes. He controlled his surging divine sense to surge towards the mixed liquid in the gray rock. At the same time, he flicked out a pile of pale white powder between his fingers. Then he raised the iron hammer and knocked on it as if it was light. Gradually, a series of mysterious miniature magic formations were formed one after another. Separate your divine sense and close the furnace, the middle-aged man commanded. The short man's muscles and nerves trembled for a moment. He withdrew his spirit sense and rushed to the turntable, turning off the flames of the furnace. The bald man quickly took out a talisman. The iron bracelet on his wrist glowed and activated the talisman. A cold mist rushed towards the gray rock, making a sizzling sound. After a while, the mist dissipated. An oval object appeared in the gray rock, emitting a spiritual luster. The short man walked over excitedly. He took off his cloak and carefully placed the object in the center of his inner armor, right where his sternum was. He showed a grateful look and said, "Brother Lee's refining skills are worthy of their reputation. I'm afraid you're even comparable to the cultivators of the treasure pavilion." The middle-aged man laughed and said, "It's all thanks to the two refining treasures of the treasure pavilion. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to refine a spirit-controlling magical instrument with my ordinary forging skills." The short man looked at his chest. His eyes were shining with a fiery light. "Brother Lee, I won't say any more. I'm going back to cultivate." After that, he walked out in a hurry. The middle-aged man was used to this scene. He touched his chest and walked to a place near the furnace and sat down cross-legged. His name was Li Kuei. He was famous in the Western Desert's secular martial arts world. His self-created chaotic wind hammer technique, combined with his innate divine strength, gave him an amazing fighting strength. Even among the martial saints of the body refining pavilion, he was one of the strongest. In addition, Li Kuei could refine a spirit-controlling magical instrument with the help of this refining furnace and the dragon-breaking stone. Other than him, there were only 4 mortal martial artists who could barely refine a spirit-controlling magical instrument. Later, by chance, Li Kuei found that cultivating near the earth-fire furnace had great effects on his sternum. However, other martial artists didn't have such a feeling. It seemed that his body was very special. After all, Li Kuei was born with divine strength, and his strength was 20% higher than other martial saints. The immortal cultivators of the treasure pavilion were very busy. They had a lot of refining tasks and were short on earth firestones. They couldn't let a mortal martial artist use them alone. Therefore, Li Kuei thought of a way. He found the immortal cultivators of the treasure pavilion and asked them to take all the tasks of refining sternum spirit, controlling magical instruments. After testing Li Kuei's refining skills, the higher-ups of the body refining pavilion decided to give Li Kuei an earth fire room to refine. Just like that, he helped the martial artists refine spirit, controlling magical instruments while cultivating near the earth fire. After 10 years, his sternum had become the toughest part of his body. However, according to Li Kuei's judgment, there was still a long way to go before his sternum could be used as a spirit-controlling magical instrument material. As this thought flashed through his mind, Li Kuei stuffed a spirit stone into his inner armor and focused on cultivating. However, not long after, he opened his eyes again. "What's going on? The fire attribute spirit Qi is so active today. There seems to be a terrifying flame power in the air." Then, Li Kuei's face turned red and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked frightened and quickly left the earth fire cave. When he came out of the cave, he suddenly found that there was a huge underground cave right below the earth fire cave. One by one, disciples of the body refining pavilion flew out, bringing with them waves of heat. So, there's a cave underground. The disciples with spirit roots are cultivating under the earth fire stones. Li Kuei jumped to the ground and stood behind the disciples. He found that these disciples with spirit roots had some burn marks on their bodies. The air was filled with the smell of barbecued meat. These disciples cultivate magic power and have strong bodies. With the heat of the earth firestones, their bodies can't be burned like this. Could there be a stronger flame source than the earth fire? Just as Li Kuei was puzzled, the spirit Qi in the valley suddenly fluctuated violently. Everyone raised their heads. No one knew when, but in this valley with a large spirit gathering array, rich fire attribute spirit Qi gathered and turned into a shocking spirit Qi vortex. It rushed into the underground cave that everyone had escaped from. This underground cave was actually divided into 2 levels. The disciples of the body refining pavilion tempered their bodies on the upper level. The lower level was a secret room about 30 meters in size. Inside, 2 figures sat cross-legged, Yu Xian and Sher Chao. Yu Xian was naked. The muscles on his face twitched as if he was enduring great pain. The surface of his charred skin emitted dark red flames from time to time. Sher Chao was behind Yu Xian. Her hands emitted a cold aura and pressed against Yu Xian's back. With the injection of rich spirit Qi, Yu Xian seemed to be suppressing the terrifying flames in his body. The dark red flames on the surface of his body gradually disappeared. The terrifying heat in the secret room also seemed to be under some kind of control and was absorbed into his body. Yu Xian slowly opened his eyes. In the depths of his pupils, a flame was reflected. His gaze was faintly emitting flames. A vigorous wave of mana shot up into the sky. The unique pressure of a completion stage cultivator spread out in all directions. Yu Xian stood up. Feeling the bone mana in his body that had merged with the strange fire, his body trembled slightly. He muttered, 10 years, a whole 10 years. I finally entered the bone treasure stage. Then he turned around and looked at Sher Chao. His eyes were burning. Senior, if you didn't suppress the strange fire at the last moment, I'm afraid my flesh and blood would have been burned before I could refine the fire of the 3 suns. Sher Chao stared blankly at her slightly charred hands. She didn't seem to hear Yu Xian's words. Senior, what happened to you? Zhao Shui'er took in a deep breath and said with a shocked expression, Junior apprentice brother, just now, the mystical fire mana in your body entered the bones of my hand and clashed with my ice mana, creating a terrifying destructive force. She muttered, this energy is even stronger than the destructive force of the blood demon bone refining technique. Chapter 9:14. The ancestor of body cultivators is working overtime. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 9:15. Time flew by, and the 3 great devil sects of the state of Qi had already been at war for 3 years. The 7 Fiends sect had allied with the 5 sects and 3 clans of the Western Prefecture, while the Yin-Yang sect had allied with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. They had split into 2 groups and were attacking the Southern Prefecture where the Blood Refining sect was located. At this time, the Blood Refining sect completely displayed the strength of the state of Qi's number 1 demonic sect. The large demonic spirit veins in the southern region were covered with a large number of restrictions. In addition to the nascent soul cultivators of the Blood Refining sect, the advance of the 2 demonic sects was extremely slow. On this day, in the northern province of the Kingdom of Qi, a faintly discernible streak of light was flying high up in the sky. Inside the streak of light was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. He exuded an extremely ferocious demonic aura. He was one of the 7 Fiend True Demon Lords, Fiend Soul True Lord. At this moment, his face was gloomy and his eyes flickered. Damn it! How did Su Junwen know that the real Soul Fiend True Lord is dead? I, Soul Fiend, have only interacted with this Yin and Yang fella in the Yi Yuan secret realm. How did she find out? This true Lord Soul Fiend Soul was once the leader of the 7 Fiends, Soul Fiend. He and the other members of the 7 Fiends had other fortuitous encounters in the Yi Yuan secret realm. other than obtaining a large number of devil stones from the Devil Refinement Cave. They had also found 2 new devil pools and collected a great amount of pure true devil water. In order to prevent themselves from being devoured by the 7-fiend true devil monarch, the 7 fiends cultivated a secret technique called the soul condensing art that was taught to them by Hun Sha. This kind of secret technique could temporarily connect their souls into one. Each of them had the strength of 7 people. In the process of fighting for the origin chi, they might be able to suppress those old fellows. The 7-fiend true devil art was a top cultivation method that the 7 of them cultivated together. With the help of a sufficient amount of pure, true devil water, coupled with their top-notch aptitudes, the 7 fiends had actually entered the early nascent soul stage. Later on, they competed with 7 fiends true demon lord for the quintessence fiendish chi in the forbidden grounds of 7 fiends sect. When Hun Sha recalled the scene back then, his eyes revealed a trace of gloominess. The soul-condensing art that he had obtained by chance did indeed condense the soul consciousness of the 7 people into one. However, the others did not know that the soul-condensing art had a main body. As long as the main body used the secret art at a critical moment, all the soul consciousness would immediately be added to the main body. The other people's souls would be greatly damaged. Soul Fiend had cast a mystic art at the critical moment when he was fighting for the quintessence baneful aura. He instantly absorbed the charisma of the other 6 people and secretly devoured the real Soul Fiend True Lord. As for the other 6, due to the damage to their souls, they were devoured by the other true demon lords without any resistance. The 7 fiends true demon lords all entered the mid-nascent soul stage. Master Hun Sha obtained the memories of Soul Fiend True Monarch and acted the same as before. As for the other 6 fiend True Monarchs, they devoured the 6 fiend True Monarchs whose souls were missing. They couldn't obtain the memories, so he hid them very well. However, who would have expected that Hun Sha would encounter Su Junwen, who had also entered the nascent soul realm, when he made a move not long ago. It was at that time that Su Junwen secretly sent him a voice transmission, calling out his identity in an instant, and even asked to meet him. He didn't know what he was up to. Although Hun Sha had become true Lord Hun Sha and entered the mid-stage nascent soul realm, Su Junwen had cultivated the power of a nascent soul at the core formation realm. After condensing a nascent soul, his strength was not to be underestimated. Let's see why this effeminate fellow wants to meet me. If there's really no other way, I'll use the divine power I just comprehended and kill him. My secret must not be known by others, especially the Grand Elder. Otherwise, Hun Sha made up his mind. The streak of light sped up and shot towards the eastern state. Between the eastern state and the northern state of the state of Qi, there was a long river that meandered for thousands of kilometers. On both sides of the river were desert rocks without any vegetation. The river water was extremely turbid, filled with demonic qi and spiritual qi, as well as the aura of cold, yin energy. Only a few special species of fish could survive in such a chaotic river water. Due to the cold, yin energy mixed in, almost no cultivators cultivated nearby. This eerie river was called the Dead Spirit River by the state of Qi's cultivators. On this day, on a rocky desert beside the Dead Spirit River, stood a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure. She wore a purple-black dress and was stroking a jade slip with her jade-like fingers. She seemed to be deep in thought. The Yuan sect is indeed worthy of being called the #1 sect in the ancient times. This primitive illusory devil mother-child technique is extremely profound and conceals many changes. The yin-yang illusory devil technique that I cultivate seems to have been born from this ancient technique. Su Junwen's divine sense sensed the ball of extreme yang energy in the depths of extreme yin's nascent soul. His eyes flashed with a trace of fanaticism. Through the reversal of yin and yang, I hid the extreme yang energy cultivated during the core formation realm and took the risk to condense a nascent soul with the extreme yin energy. This way, I can use the extreme yang energy as the source of my child body and cultivate the newly created yin-yang mother-child technique. The blood refinement sex illusory devil mother-child technique is focused on breaking through bottlenecks and illusions. It can only be considered as an auxiliary cultivation technique. On the other hand, the yin-yang mother-child technique I created is a cultivation technique that cultivates two nascent souls and possesses terrifying and formidable divine abilities. Even if it's the top divine ability of the Darjo sect, the second nascent soul, it's only a clone at the nascent soul realm, and I still have to worry about backlash. But my yin-yang twin nascent souls are different. They were cultivated by me and won't suffer from backlash at all. Moreover, their devil energy reserves are 2 times that of cultivators of the same realm, and it's even more terrifying than the blood devil technique. Moreover, the combination of the extreme yin energy and extreme yang energy can transform into numerous divine abilities. Suddenly, Su Junwen's brows raised, and he put away the jade slip before looking towards the direction of the Dead Spirit River. A strand of obscure devilish light shot violently towards him. In next to no time, the strand of light descended onto the rocky desert and revealed a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. It was precisely Hun Sha. Hun Sha scanned Su Junwen from head to toe and said with a strange expression, "Fairy Su, please speak frankly if you have something to say. Although our two sects have joined forces to fight the enemy, we're still in a competitive relationship." Su Junwen smiled and said, "Fellow Hun Sha, we even joined forces to fight the enemy in the Yuan secret realm. Don't tell me you don't recognize me?" Hun Sha snorted coldly and said, "Those 7 disappointing fellows died from the baleful qi that invaded their bodies many years ago. Fairy Su, there's no need to pull any strings. If it has nothing to do with the war, please return." Su Junwen covered her mouth and chuckled. Her voluptuous body trembled slightly, and she exuded a shocking charm. "Fellow Hun Sha, there's only the 2 of us here. You don't have to imitate true Lord Hun Sha." Hun Sha's pupils shrank. An incomparably dense nascent soul stage power surged out. The enormous pressure of a mid-nascent soul stage spread out. His divine sense locked onto Su Junwen. Su Junwen's expression did not change. A layer of demonic power enveloped his body. Although he only had the aura of an early nascent soul stage demonic power, there seemed to be an extremely powerful energy hidden deep within the demonic power. It resisted Hun Sha's pressure for a moment. Su Junwen took a step back without batting an eyelid. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly as she said, "Fellow Hun Sha, there's no need to be agitated. I, Su Junwen, am a yin and yang soul. I have a unique secret technique to distinguish a person's soul. It seems like the other 7 fiend true devil lords are still those old fellows. They and the other nascent soul stage cultivators of the 7 fiend sect probably don't know about your situation." Hun Sha narrowed his eyes. A shocking demonic power was brewing in his body. It was as if he had silently agreed. He said slowly, "Fairy Su, are you threatening me? Do you think I don't have the strength to destroy you?" Su Junwen said, "Since the 7 fiend true devil lords have entered the mid-nascent soul stage, they will soon proceed to the final step. The 7 fiend fusion will attempt to produce a new late-nascent soul stage demonic cultivator." Hun Sha's pupils shrank. "How do you know the secret of my 7 fiend sect?" Su Junwen did not answer. Instead, she said mysteriously, "Since the 7 fiend true devil technique secret technique confuse the 7 fiend fusion, could your grand elder have a secret technique that could devour all of you in an attempt to break through his current realm?" Hun Sha's expression changed abruptly. Chapter 916. Su Junwen observed Hun Sha's expression and said meaningfully, "Fellow Taoist Hun Sha, you were able to plot and devour the previous perfected Lord Hun Sha to enter the mid-stage nascent soul realm. Naturally, you're far-sighted. I don't believe that you haven't thought of that." Hun Sha's expression quickly recovered. He said in a deep voice, "I've long heard that the Yin-Yang sect is well-informed. I never expected Fairy Sue to know so many of our sect's secrets. However, if Fairy Sue wants to use this opportunity to sow discord between us and the Grand Elder, then you've made a mistake." He paused for a moment before continuing. "If Grand Elder wants to use this method to break through, our seven fiend true demon lord can also devour Grand Elder. However, Grand Elder has a higher chance of success due to his higher cultivation." A strange light flashed in the depths of his eyes as he said, "This is an opportunity for the Great Elder, but it is also an opportunity for the seven of us." Leaping from the mid-nascent soul stage to the spirit-severing stage, even if there's only a slight chance, we must give it a try. Su Junwen was slightly stunned. Then, he covered his mouth and laughed. According to this logic, fellow Taoist soul Baleful should have devoured the previous soul Baleful True Lord. However, from the looks of it, fellow Taoist, you seem to have been hiding it. A trace of coldness flashed across Han Sha's eyes as he said in a low voice, "Could it be that Fairy Sue called me over just to threaten me?" Su Junwen chuckled and said, "Fellow Taoist Han Sha, please don't misunderstand. Actually, I asked you out this time because I want to make a deal." Han Sha narrowed his eyes and said, "What deal?" Su Junwen's expression turned serious as he said, "I wonder if fellow Taoist Han Sha is interested in the soul of a nascent soul." When Han Sha heard about the nascent soul, he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression and said, "What? Does Fairy Sue have a complete nascent soul?" His innate cultivation method was closely related to his soul. To him, the soul of a nascent soul was several times better than any medicinal pill that could increase his cultivation base. However, obtaining the soul of a nascent soul was even more difficult than capturing one alive. Once a cultivator enters the nascent soul stage, his soul and the nascent soul will be closely connected. If you were to forcefully separate them, it would only cause the nascent soul to dissipate and the soul to perish. Only when a nascent soul stage cultivator takes the initiative to separate their soul can the two be completely separated. As for those demonic cultivators above level 8, they only had demonic cores in their bodies and no nascent souls. As long as their physical bodies were destroyed, their souls could be easily extracted by nascent soul stage cultivators. Therefore, for secret techniques that used high-level divine souls, they would usually find high-level demonic beast souls to replace them. Han Sha had used the soul concentration art to do something and devoured the previous Han Sha perfected lord. His divine soul still had some hidden dangers. If he had the soul of a nascent soul, not only would his divine soul recover completely, his cultivation level might even improve. The seven fiend true devil lord had both entered the mid-stage of the nascent soul realm. Their starting point was exactly the same. Their next step was to combine the seven fiends into one. It could be said that whoever had a higher cultivation would have a higher chance of success. Su Junwen first mentioned the unification of the seven evils and then talked about the Grand Elder's plan. He knew that the nascent soul was useful to him and was just paving the way for the deal. Various thoughts flashed through Han Sha's mind. He could not help but say, "I wonder what Fairy Sue has taken a fancy to. If the price is reasonable, I'm willing to exchange." Su Junwen scanned Han Sha from head to toe, causing the latter to have goosebumps. She clicked her tongue and said, "Taoist Han Sha, I have no use for your treasures. Why want is you?" Han Sha's face turned ashen. Who doesn't know about the yin-yang sect's secret technique of copulation? Fairy Sue. Su Junwen laughed until her body trembled. She exuded a strange charm. "Taoist Han Sha, you've misunderstood. I'm only interested in your fiend's soul fiend light. Only your divine ability and my secret technique can capture a nascent soul. Han Sha heaved a sigh of relief. Then he frowned and said, "My fiend's soul fiend light can temporarily imprison an early-stage nascent soul cultivator's nascent soul, preventing it from leaving the body. However, if the Dharma body collapses, it will lose its effect. Could it be that Fairy Sue wants to join forces with me to capture a nascent soul?" Could it be that Fairy Sue's secret technique is to extract the nascent soul's soul from the nascent soul? Su Junwen revealed a mysterious smile. On the contrary, my secret technique is not to extract the soul from the nascent soul, but through its physical body. Physical body. Su Junwen licked her lips and said, "This secret technique that I created can suck the nascent soul's power dry through an immortal cultivator's physical body. At the same time, the nascent soul will enter an illusory state. If nothing goes wrong, once the nascent soul is sucked dry, the lost soul will temporarily attach itself to the physical body. At that time, the difficulty of extracting the soul will not be much higher than a demon beast." Han Sha's expression was a little disappointed. "So Fairy Su has not tested it." Su Junwen chuckled and said, "Therefore, the content of our deal is for the two of us to join forces and find a lone nascent soul cultivator in this war. Taoist Han Sha's soul fiend light and my secret technique will work together. I can absorb the opponent's nascent soul's power to cultivate, while Taoist Han Sha can collect the nascent soul's soul. Isn't this the best of both worlds?" Han Sha's eyes flickered. "Lone nascent soul cultivators. What does Fairy Su mean?" Su Junwen said, "Although our sect is cooperating with the Western Prefecture's Itinerant Cultivator Alliance, we are actually using them as expendable goods to restrain a portion of the blood refinement sect's energy. Although both sides have an agreement, there are some loopholes. As long as the Dharma body is not destroyed, it is not considered a violation. I believe that the Seven Fiends sect and the 5 sects and 3 clans have similar loopholes." Han Sha pondered for a moment and said, "The fiend's soul fiend light only imprisons the nascent soul in the physical body. It does not affect the agreement." Su Junwen said meaningfully, "Rather than being killed by the blood refinement sect, why don't we do it ourselves?" Taoist Han Sha, as the 7 fiend true demon lord, you naturally know the location of the nascent soul cultivators of the 5 sects and 3 clans. As for me, I can also lure the fellows from the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance." Han Sha narrowed his eyes and said, "Fairy Su is indeed smart. If we are dealing with the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance, I will be the main force and Fairy Su will support me. If we are dealing with the 5 sects and 3 clans, it will be the opposite. Fairy Su, under the condition of not damaging the Dharma body, devouring the nascent soul's power is not considered a violation of the agreement. As for extracting the nascent soul's soul, we can help each other." Su Junwen chuckled and said, "Since fellow Taoist Han Sha agrees, why don't we test it out? If I'm not wrong, the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance's Shui, you should be arriving soon." Han Sha raised his eyebrows and said, "Shueya?" Su Junwen smiled charmingly and said with a slight ripple in his voice, "That old pervert Shueya's cultivation method happens to be restrained by me. Under the influence of my bewitching mystic technique, he took the initiative to ask me to meet him at the Dead Souls River. His cultivation is ordinary. If the two of us work together, we can easily capture him alive." She felt the sparse, extreme young power in the depths of the nascent soul and said with a faint excitement, "This fellow looks skinny, but his essence blood is abundant. The nascent soul in his body can completely satisfy my cultivation needs. If my mystic technique succeeds, fellow Taoist Han Sha can also extract the nascent soul's soul." Just as she finished speaking, a mocking voice suddenly sounded from the surroundings. "TSK, TSK, fellow Taoist Su is indeed ruthless. Shueya is very infatuated with fellow Taoist Su." Han Sha and Su Junwen's expressions changed. The demonic power in their bodies surged almost at the same time. A dark yellow demonic light and a white blade shot out. A burly bald man appeared out of thin air on a rock about 30 meters away. This person did not have any aura and was like an ordinary mortal. The bald man looked at the 2 demonic light that contained the powerful nascent soul power that shot towards him. He casually raised his hands, and the air around his palms distorted slightly. An inexplicable pressure filled the air and hit the demonic light and the blade as if he was swatting flies. The two nascent soul cultivators' Dharma spells seemed to have received a terrifying shock. The demonic light trembled and turned into specks of spiritual light that dissipated in the air. The bald man's hands were unharmed. It was as if the two demonic light attacks were an illusion. At this moment, Hunsha also saw the bald man's appearance clearly. His expression changed drastically. Zhang Tianbiao, it's you. Su Junwen revealed a look of disbelief. Her eyes suddenly turned black and white. It was as if she had used some kind of spiritual sight ability. Then she cried out, "It's really you. It's only been a few decades, and you've actually entered the nascent soul stage." Hunsha and Su Junwen hurriedly added a defensive barrier to themselves. They looked as if they were facing a great enemy. They had a deep impression of Zhang Tianbiao. In the Yuan mystic realm, this person used his flesh and blood to fight against a top-notch demonic zombie. His physical body could be said to be terrifying. Just now, this fellow actually used his palms to easily block their Dharma spells. Clearly, his physical body was even more perverse. This person had the combat power of a pseudo-nascent soul when he was only in the middle stage core formation realm. What kind of terrifying strength was he now? Chapter 9:17. Lu Kuan jumped down from the rock and smiled. I didn't expect the two of you to still remember me. After all, we fought side by side in the mystic realm. You don't have to be so nervous. Hunsha snorted. Fellow Zhang, you stole the treasures of the 7 evil spirits in the mystic realm. Then you took the corpse of a top-grade demonic zombie for yourself. You call that fighting side by side? Lu Kuan said calmly. I, Zhang Tianbiao, am just an itinerant cultivator. Of course, I have to think of ways to reap the benefits. Su Junwen's face darkened. Itinerant cultivator? Is fellow Zhang from the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance? Lu Kuan looked disdainful. That's just a motley crew. They don't even have a great cultivator. I won't join such a weak alliance. Su Junwen's face darkened. Since fellow Zhang isn't from the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance, it's even more impossible for you to know about this place. That old fellow Bloodfang would never tell anyone else. Lu Kuan looked at Su Junwen's voluptuous body and clicked his tongue. Fairy Su's bewitching secret technique isn't simple. You can actually bewitch Bloodfang without batting an eyelid. Even when I searched Bloodfang's soul, I didn't find any trace of your bewitching secret technique. Su Junwen and Hunsha were shocked when they heard that. Bloodfang was weak, but he was still a nascent soul cultivator. Yet, Zhang Tianbiao managed to capture his nascent soul. Lu Kuan sighed. I didn't expect that my curiosity would allow me to discover Hunsha, true demon lord, and Yin Yang Saint's plan. If I spread the news that the two of you killed your allies, the war between the 3 demon sects will have many more variables. Su Junwen said, Fellow Zhang, are you trying to threaten us? But I don't think anyone would believe it if they heard it from an itinerant cultivator. Lu Kuan said, I don't know if they believe it or not, but I'm afraid your plan will fail. Hunsha's expression changed. Fellow Zhang, are you trying to make a deal with us? Lu Kuan said, That's right. Su Junwen snorted and said, If you want to trade with us, you'll have to try fellow Taoist Zhang's divine ability again. As soon as her voice trailed off, her voluptuous body emitted a blinding white light. Countless white blades shot out and covered the sky as they rushed forward like hundreds of treasures. The original level energy they emitted was extremely dense and terrifying. Hunsha's body also trembled slightly. 3 yellow lights flashed out of his body and disappeared. Lu Kuan looked at the sky full of white blade attacks. He raised his palms, which were wrapped in a layer of silver light, and 3 layers of distorted force fields enveloped his palms. Then his arms trembled rapidly. Due to the extreme speed, more than 10 palm shadows appeared in front of him. Each of the palm prints rippled with invisible ripples in all directions, forming a pale, silver, twisted curtain of light in the shape of a spiderweb. The white blades that filled the sky crashed into the light barrier with unparalleled power. An extremely dull sound was heard. A large number of white blades turned into specks of spiritual light and dissipated in front of the light barrier. It was as if a terrifying vibration force had forcefully shattered them. A moment later, the white blades that filled the sky disappeared. Only a white crescent moon blade was left. It trembled slightly in front of the silver light curtain. Beside it, 3 dark yellow long nails had appeared out of nowhere. They were also blocked by the light curtain. Lu Kuan's eyes revealed a hint of excitement. His rapidly waving arms paused. The palm shadows and the rippling light curtain dissipated. Only 2 thick palms were left. They carried 3 layers of distorted force fields and bombarded the crescent moon blade and the long nail treasures. Hun Sha and Su Junwen felt an incomparably tyrannical power rush into their Dharma treasures, dissipating most of the devil power within. The 2 of them were shocked. They were just about to inject devil power into their treasures to resist this strange vibration force. However, at this moment, Lu Kuan's burly figure suddenly disappeared. Oh no! Su Junwen and Hun Sha's expressions changed. They shot into the sky almost at the same moment Lu Kuan disappeared. They had seen it in the Yuan mystic realm. This itinerant cultivator's body was comparable to a top-grade devil zombie. He could unleash his speed to the extreme on the ground, but could not unleash his terrifying speed in the air. However, the 2 of them had just flown 100 feet into the air when the bald man appeared in front of them. His burly body had a strange pressure that caused their bodies to tremble. It was as if they had encountered some kind of natural enemy. Su Junwen and Hun Sha were shocked. However, their reactions were not slow. They quickly unleashed their defensive techniques. The inner armor under Hun Sha's robe emitted a yellow glow. The shield around his body was immediately thickened by a layer. On the other hand, a silk cloth emerged from Su Junwen's long skirt and wrapped around her delicate body. The corners of Lu Kuan's mouth curled up slightly. His strong body suddenly shrunk. However, his arms rapidly swelled. They were filled with hideous veins and muscles. It was as if his flesh and blood had been transferred to his arms. Lu Kuan's legs kicked slightly. The void became a stepping board. His entire body transformed into several afterimages. He circled around Hun Sha and Su Junwen. At the same time, each afterimage struck out with a blurry palm print. Some of these afterimages were striking at the 2 of them. However, some had their backs facing them. Their arms were striking backward at a distorted angle. The wave-shaped palm prints continuously bombarded the outermost shield of the 2. However, although the defensive spirit light trembled, it did not show any signs of dissipating. It was as if it could not break through the shield. Hun Sha and Su Junwen were delighted at first. However, they were horrified to discover that waves of endless vibrating force were being transmitted inwards through the shield outside their bodies. The spirit light of the defensive artifact could not block it. The vibrating force was like a strange force field. It vibrated the demonic power in their bodies. Even their nascent soul power was trembling. Su Junwen immediately felt that it was difficult for her to cast other spells when her demonic power and nascent soul power were trembling violently. She could not even recall the crescent moon blade artifact in the distance. Hun Sha was slightly better. He had a nascent soul middle stage cultivation base. He endured the vibrating demonic power and forcefully cast a spell. 3 dark yellow long nails shot back from afar. Lu Kuan's body paused in midair. He casually struck backward with his right palm. Unexpectedly, the long nails instantly merged into one. Its speed increased explosively. It flashed past his palm and pierced towards Lu Kuan's head. Clang! A crisp sound rang out as the thick and long nail smashed into his forehead. It pierced through his skin and revealed a shiny silver skull. Lu Kuan did not move. He quickly struck his forehead with his palms. 2 palm prints blasted onto the long nail. The latter trembled slightly and split into 3 long nails. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Su Junwen regained control of her demonic power. A completely different nascent soul power gushed out from the depths of her nascent soul. A little black demonic light appeared on the white shield outside her body. The vigorous aura of the nascent soul power was not inferior to that of a nascent soul middle stage cultivator. Hunsha, on the other hand, cast a spell. His body suddenly emitted an extremely shocking, evil aura. The long nails in Lu Kuan's palms seemed to be affected by something. They trembled violently. Lu Kuan exclaimed softly. His eyes were in a trance. He seemed to be affected by something. However, he quickly recovered. The 3 long nails in his hands took advantage of his trance to quickly break free from his palms and enter Hunsha's body. Su Junwen's delicate voice became a little low. Fellow Zhang's strength is amazing. However, if we continue to fight, it will be a battle of life and death. Lu Kuan heard this and shook his hand. The swollen muscles on his arm returned to their original state. The flesh on his arm returned to his body. The inexplicable pressure in the air dissipated. He had just used a combat skill that he had created not long ago, the Zhenyuan Palm. This combat skill of the palm technique could superimpose 3 layers of vibrating origin force fields on the hand. It could transmit a terrifying force of hundreds of thousands of kilograms in the form of vibrations. In addition to dispersing energy attacks, Lu Kuan also found out when he killed Bloodfang that the vibrating force of a Zhenyuan palm could penetrate the cultivator's shield and agitate the nascent soul power in the opponent's body. It was difficult for him to cast a spell. In a battle just now, he had used the flesh and blood fusion ability. He had infused part of his body's flesh and blood essence into his arm, increasing the strength of his arm by 10%. He had formed an absolute suppression against Su Junwen, who was in the early nascent soul stage. As for Hunsha, if his continuous Zhenyuan palm was aimed at Hunsha alone, he would not be able to easily mobilize the nascent soul power. With these thoughts in his mind, Lu Kuan said lightly, "Since the 2 of you have tested my ability, can we make a deal?" Hunsha and Su Junwen were slightly relieved when they heard this. The short battle, just now, made them feel that Zhang Tianbiao's strength was unfathomable. It was definitely far beyond an ordinary nascent soul stage cultivator. Although the 2 of them still had some trump cards, they could not use them easily. It was the best choice for both parties to stop fighting. Su Junwen waved her delicate hand and kept the crescent moon blade magic treasure into her body. Her body was still surrounded by the black and white nascent soul power. She asked, "What does fellow Taoist Zhang want to trade with us?" Lu Kuan said meaningfully, "What do the 2 of you think about the difficulty of capturing an early nascent soul stage cultivator if the 3 of us join forces?" Su Junwen immediately recalled the scene where she was unable to cast spells due to the surging demonic power. If she had this fellow's help, capturing an early nascent soul stage cultivator alive would be a cinch. Hunsha frowned and said, "Then what does fellow Taoist Zhang want?" Lu Kuan chuckled and said, "Fellow Taoist Hun, Sha needs the soul of a nascent soul. Fairy Su absorbs the power of a nascent soul. As for me, I've been researching a secret technique recently. I need a living nascent soul stage spell body to experiment. It doesn't conflict with the 2 of you. As for the value of this nascent soul stage cultivator, I don't need it. I only need the 2 of you to exchange some demonic treasure refining methods." Hunsha was stunned. Clearly, he did not expect Lu Kuan to make such a request. Not only would it not affect him, it would even benefit him. After all, if he joined forces with Su Junwen, there was still a possibility of failure. Su Junwen said cautiously, "Will fellow Taoist Zhang's secret technique destroy the spell body of a nascent soul stage cultivator? If the spell body is destroyed, Hunsha's baleful soul demonic light will lose its effect. The nascent soul will be able to teleport away. That would be equivalent to a failure." Lu Kuan shook his head and said, "Fairy Su, please don't worry. This experiment of mine will only destroy his meridians at most." Su Junwen and Hunsha looked at each other. They secretly communicated with their spiritual sense for a moment and agreed to Lu Kuan's trade. Chapter 918. Ever since the 2 demonic sects and the forces of the West Continent attacked the South Continent, The blood-refining sect had entered a passive state of defense. Other than the Blood Demon Mountain range where the sect was located, the 8 most important resource points of the blood-refining sect in the South Continent all had restrictions on them. Although they were resource points, the restrictions on them were more powerful than the sect protecting array of an ordinary sect. Each resource point was guarded by a nascent soul stage cultivator. With the help of the array, they could completely resist the attack of 3 nascent soul stage cultivators. Moreover, the 8 resource points were connected by a special teleportation array. This allowed the nascent soul stage cultivators of each resource point to support each other. It was extremely difficult to break through such a resource point. Unless the 7 Fiends sect and the Yin-Yang sect sent 7 or 8 nascent soul stage cultivators to attack a resource point, it would be impossible to break through. However, in the past few years, since the war broke out, the 2 demonic sects only sent 1 nascent soul stage cultivator to each of the 8 resource points. They did not attack by force. Instead, they sent out a large number of disciples to sweep the other secondary resource points. Due to the lack of manpower, there were very few nascent soul stage cultivators in the secondary resource points. Most of the battles were between core formation stage cultivators. As the war continued, the secondary resource points gradually fell into the control of the 2 demonic sections. Somewhere in the South Continent of the state of Qi, there was a rugged mountain range that stretched for hundreds of miles. It was like a dragon hibernating on the ground. Dense, spiritual, and demonic Qi lingered around it, making it look majestic and magnificent. This was the famous Coiling Dragon Mountain in the South Continent. Coiling Dragon Mountain was one of the few demonic spiritual veins that produced demonic stones. At the same time, it also grew a large number of demonic herbs. It was one of the 8 resource points of the blood-refining sect. On this day, a fat man in a black robe was sitting cross-legged on one of the peaks of Coiling Dragon Mountain. He emitted a tyrannical, demonic fluctuation. He was obviously a nascent soul stage cultivator. The fat on the fat man's face was squeezed together, and his face was full of worry. It seems that the 2 demonic sects are going to attack the 8 resource points. New nascent soul stage cultivators are appearing in the other resource points. Who will they send to Coiling Dragon Mountain? The fat man raised his head and looked at the restrictions outside Coiling Dragon Mountain. For some reason, he felt a strong sense of uneasiness in his heart. I was able to enter the nascent soul stage because of the mutated demonic energy and Senior Brother Situ's secret technique. I'm afraid I have no hope of entering the middle stage nascent soul stage. Among the nascent soul stage cultivators guarding the 8 resource points, my cultivation is the weakest. I'm afraid that the old man from the Demon Flame sect has already figured out my real strength. He knows that I'm weaker than an ordinary early-stage nascent soul cultivator. What if the 2 demon sects attack Panlong Mountain first? Just as Fei Mo was worried, a small array not far behind him lit up, and a jade slip appeared. Fat Devil's eyes lit up, and he quickly pulled the jade into his hand. His divine sense entered, but soon he revealed a look of terror. What? Soul Fiend, True Monarch, and Su Junwen have arrived outside the Coiling Dragon Mountain. Both of them have the combat prowess of a middle-stage nascent soul stage cultivator. With the addition of the Devil Flame sect cultivator, Fat Devil, will not be able to hold them off. Fei Mo couldn't help but stand up. I don't understand why the sect is guarding the resource points. At most, it will delay them for a few years. Could it be that one of the senior brothers has the confidence to enter the middle stage nascent soul stage? Just as Fei Mo's thoughts were running wild, the forbidden array covering the Coiling Dragon Mountain trembled slightly, and a loud rumbling sound was heard. They're attacking so soon. Fei Mo revealed a nervous expression. The power of his nascent soul surged inside his body, and he sent out seals to the formation in front of him. The power of his nascent soul divine sense spread out, and he gave out orders. The disciples of the blood-refining sect immediately returned to their positions and worked together to maintain the forbidden array. After a while, The trembling barrier stabilized. Fei Mo frowned. Strange, with this kind of attack strength, it should be an old fellow from the Demon Flame sect. If Hun Sha and Su Junwen joined in, I wouldn't be so relaxed. Could it be that he is testing us? Thinking of this, Fei Mo took out a disc. On it was the phantom of the coiling dragon mountain. At the edge, there was a flickering black light. It was the place where the enemy attacked. This old man wouldn't attack for no reason. He must have some other purpose. Fei Mo pondered for a moment. His hands flickered as he shot out several demonic lights towards the array plate, causing the phantoms to become even more solid. Many white dots appeared on the array plate. Obviously, they were the disciples of the blood-refining sect who were in charge of the array. There's no problem. These white dots, why are they at my position? Fei Mo couldn't help but raise his head. A terrifying fluctuation suddenly appeared in the sky. Accompanied by a blinding silver light, a hole was blasted open in the barrier. Fei Mo's mouth fell open. He couldn't believe his eyes. A forbidden array of this level had been forcibly broken open. Only a great cultivator-level attack could do this. As soon as the hole appeared, 3 figures rushed in. The leader of the group was a bald man. The veins and muscles on his right arm were contorted hideously, and there was still some silver light on his right index and middle finger. The other 2 were a middle-aged man and a voluptuous woman. As soon as the 3 of them entered, the barrier closed again. Fei Mo looked and revealed a look of disbelief. "You are Zhang Tianbiao." Before he finished speaking, the power of his nascent soul surged. He spat out a mouthful of blood essence, and his body was immediately wrapped in a layer of blood-red light. The bald man smiled, and his body flashed. He appeared in front of Fei Mo as if he had teleported. The muscles on his right arm twisted strangely, and the silver vortex on his index and middle fingers quickly merged. His fingers carried a blinding silver light and stabbed into the blood-red light. In almost an instant, a large hole was opened in the light. Then the bald man flipped his right hand, and his fingers opened into a palm. 3 layers of formless palm imprints were unleashed, and a burst of fearsome, vibrational force proliferated in all directions. The crimson streak of light trembled before dissipating into specks of spiritual light, revealing Fei Mo, who was enshrouded in a demonic power barrier. In the next instant, the bald man quickly waved his hands and unleashed a dozen or so palm shadows. Ripples of distortion appeared in the air, and Fei Mo was instantly wrapped up by countless palm prints. Fei Mo was horrified to find that his demonic force was being shaken by a strange power. He couldn't summon a trace of his nascent soul power or demonic force. It was as if he had been imprisoned. During this moment of delay, Hun Sha, who was at the back, formed a profound seal. 3 long, dark yellow nails shot out from his body with a shocking, murderous aura. At this moment, the bald man's movements faltered, and he quickly pointed 3 times. The terrifying penetrative power easily blasted 3 small holes in Fei Mo's barrier. Then, Hun Sha's 3 spikes disappeared into the holes and stabbed into Fei Mo's dantian. Ferocious demonic force and demonic light erupted. Fei Mo's eyes dimmed, and the demonic force barrier around his body disappeared. His body slowly fell to the ground under the effect of an invisible force. Chapter 919. Lu Kuan looked at Fei Mo, who seemed to be asleep, and praised. Fellow Taoist Hun Sha's supernatural power is really powerful. You can even imprison a nascent soul and dharma body. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. Hun Sha landed beside Fei Mo, and his hand was still flashing with the spell. He said slowly, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, you're exaggerating. With my realm, I can only use it on early nascent soul stage. During this period, I can attack, and it can only last for an hour." Su Junwen looked at Fei Mo's body and licked his lips. He said eagerly, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, hurry up and do it. We don't have much time." Lu Kuan nodded and came to Fei Mo's side. A shocking power of qi and blood surged out of his body. He opened his mouth and spat out a grape-sized silver blood ball onto Fei Mo's chest. The blood ball turned into a pool of silver liquid and seeped into Fei Mo's heart through his robe. Then, the silver blood essence mixed with Fei Mo's blood and flowed through his blood vessels as if it was under Lu Kuan's control. After a while, Fei Mo's body trembled uncontrollably. Dense blood vessels appeared on the surface of his skin. Lu Kuan was now experimenting with a secret method to strengthen the meridians of nascent soul stage cultivators. Originally, he only had some guesses about it and didn't have any deeper clues until he met Shueya. This nascent soul stage cultivator from the Rogue Cultivators Alliance had an average cultivation level, but he had the means to detect the huge amount of blood essence in Lu Kuan's body. He even wanted to refine it. The result was obvious. Shui was easily killed. After searching his soul, Lu Kuan was surprised to find that Shui had a unique secret method. He cleverly used the blood essence to enhance spells or magic treasures to increase their power. The blood escape technique was also a secret method that used the blood essence. Compared to the blood escape technique, Shui's secret method was much more comprehensive. Lu Kuan understood this secret method, and his control over his blood increased greatly. As long as his blood didn't leave his body within 100 feet, he could control it flexibly. In this way, it was possible to strengthen the meridians. In the past, the Hong brothers of the Yuan sect used the power of qi and blood to devour the blood essence of demonic zombies and demon beasts to strengthen themselves. Was it possible to use the essence of one's own body to strengthen others through qi and blood essence to strengthen their bodies? Lu Kuan had no idea how to strengthen the meridians. But if it was only strengthen the meridians, to strengthen the meridians, it would be much easier. The bloods to strengthen the meridians is meridians, and blood essences bloods bees meridians beast blood nourished by blood. To strengthen Kuan Sha's body, it had qi blood be qi, it qi, it and qi. Qi, it, t, have t, v, b. VSG is S's. It S to strengthens to blood Kuan. Hunsha. He was standing not far away. His nascent soul S power surged. He maintained the fiendish soul demonic light. He looked at Lu Kuan, fear flashing in the depths of his eyes. This mysterious itinerant cultivator called Zhang Tianbiao. His was terrifying. Just 2 of his fingers could absorb his and Su Junwen's attack. It was as if his fingers were an extremely powerful, array-breaking Dharma treasure. Fei Mo, an early nascent soul cultivator, could not resist at all. Zhang Tianbiao's S is very similar to these. Could it be this? Hunsha thought. Unlike Hunsha, Su Junwen did not pay too much attention to Lu Kuan. Instead, he looked at Fei Mo. He was worried that Lu Kuan would break his Dharma body. She created the yin-yang mother-child technique. It was a top cultivation technique for cultivating 2 nascent souls. When she was in the Yuan mystic realm, she had already nurtured the power of extreme yang. If she broke through as a man, she could easily form her nascent soul. However, she had foresight. She took the risk of breaking through as a woman. She used the power of extreme yin to form her nascent soul. The extreme yang power of the core formation stage was sealed in the depths of her nascent soul. This way, Su Junwen's nascent soul was the mother's body. The extreme yang power in his body was the child's embryo. The process of cultivating 2 nascent souls was to gradually strengthen the extreme yang power. Then, through the mother's nascent soul, it would give birth to a child nascent soul. If she cultivated step by step, it would take a shocking amount of time. The fastest way was to use the yang power to nourish her yin. She would absorb a large amount of nascent soul male cultivator's body essence and nascent soul power to nourish the extreme yang power in the depths of her nascent soul. If Lu Kuan damaged Fei Mo's Dharma body, her extreme yang power would be affected. Fei Mo was in extreme pain. The strange light from the 3 Dharma treasures caused the nascent soul and Dharma body to be tightly connected. He couldn't use the power of the nascent soul, and even his immortal will couldn't leave his body. A surge of blood, chi, suddenly appeared in his body and flowed in his meridians. It made him feel like he was taking a nascent soul elixir when he was a core formation cultivator. His meridians were extremely swollen. After about 15 minutes, a series of popping sounds were heard. All the meridians in Fei Mo's body exploded. The shocking blood chi also left his body. Then, Fat Demon smelled a seductive body fragrance amidst the smell of blood. A voluptuous body leaned over. That soft and supple feeling was even more comfortable than cotton candy. A pair of nimble and slender hands were even touching the sensitive parts of his body. The person doing this was the famous Yin-Yang saint of the Yin-Yang sect, Su Junwen. Fei Mo was terrified. What is this guy doing to me? Is he going to suck me dry? Is Su Junwen a man or a woman? If he's a man, how can he have sex with Yin and Yang? Damn it. Why isn't my body listening to me? It's actually reacting. Ah, so he's a woman. Such a warm and humid cave. No, I have to hold on. Ah, damn it. I can't take it anymore. Ah. Fei Mo lay on the ground with his arms and legs spread out. He had an intoxicated expression. A voluptuous and fair body sat on top of him. Dense extreme Yin power surged in this body. Fei Mo's soul seemed to have been elevated. He was in a state of floating. Therefore, he didn't notice that his Dharma body and nascent soul were shrinking at a visible speed. In just 10 breaths of time, Fei Mo had become a bag of bones, and his nascent soul had become dim and lifeless. Hun Sha's eyes lit up. He stopped the fiendish soul demonic light and reached out his hand. An illusory figure with a dull expression flew out of Fei Mo's body. Hun Sha was overjoyed. He took out a jade bottle and sucked the illusory figure into it. He stuck a few talismans on it and carefully kept it in his storage bag. With a flash of demonic light, Su Junwen once again donned a purple dress, covering her body. Her face was flushed red as she felt the extreme yang energy in her body grow stronger. Her eyes flashed with excitement. A golden light flashed in the depths of Lu Kuan's eyes. He chuckled and said, "Looks like the two of you have succeeded. Is the remaining demonic power enough?" That old man from the Demon Flames sect. Su Junwen heard this and immediately said excitedly, "I'm fine. Fellow Taoist Hun Sha, inform that old man to come over. No one will know if we do it here." Hun Sha had just obtained a nascent soul. He was also excited. He quickly took out a jade talisman and activated it. Their plan was to deal with Fei Mo first. Then, they would set a trap for the Demon Flame sect's nascent soul cultivator. This way, not only could they kill the two nascent soul cultivators, they could also claim that the two of them died together. Chapter 9:20. As the two demonic sects attacked the 8 resource points of the Blood Refinement sect, the war in the Kingdom of Qi reached its climax. Even nascent soul cultivators were injured. In the alliance army of the two demonic sects, there were nascent soul cultivators from the 5 sects and 3 clans of the Western Prefecture and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance who had fallen. Although many nascent soul cultivators from the 7 Fiends sect and the Yin-Yang sect were injured, none of them died. As the 5 sects and 3 clans suffered great losses, they withdrew from the battlefield after receiving a large amount of resources. However, the demonic cultivators from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance were different. They were all rogue cultivators and were unwilling to miss out on the final battle at the Blood Devil Mountain Range. They remained in the Alliance army, hoping to fish in troubled waters in the upcoming war. Compared to the two demonic sects, the Blood Refinement sect's losses were more severe. Many nascent soul cultivators had fallen, and their overall strength had decreased greatly. Although the Blood Refinement sect relied on the forbidden array of the 8 resource points and spent another 6 years to maintain the combat strength of mid-stage nascent soul cultivators and above, the two demonic sects felt that the Blood Refinement sect's momentum was gone, and it was only a matter of time before they were annihilated. At the Dead Souls River in the Kingdom of Qi, Lu Kuan, Hun Sha, and Su Junwen stood on a rocky desert. Lu Kuan still had the appearance of a bald man. There was no aura on his body, and he looked like a mortal. Hun Sha's aura had become deeper compared to a few years ago. His pupils had turned dark yellow, as if they could see through a person's soul. Su Junwen's fair skin was moist and filled with an attractive luster. However, the nascent soul power in his body seemed to be unstable, and his aura would leak out from time to time. Lu Kuan observed the two of them and clicked his tongue in wonder. Hun Sha's appearance seemed to have improved his soul greatly. Su Junwen's cultivation technique seemed to have reached a critical point, and he could break through to the mid-stage nascent soul realm at any time. In just 6 years, the two of them had improved so much. It was obvious that the cultivation technique they cultivated was extremely mysterious. A thought flashed through his mind, and Lu Kuan said, "Both of you, I wonder if you have brought what I want." When Hun Sha heard this, his eyes returned to their normal color. 2 jade slips appeared in his hand, and he tossed them out. Lu Kuan scanned with his divine sense and revealed a displeased expression. "Fellow Taoist Hun Sha, your 7 Fiend sect is a sect that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Is the refinement method for fiend treasures so rare?" Hun Sha frowned and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, I've already given you 8 refinement blueprints in the past few years. These 2 blueprints were something I exchanged with my senior brothers. Apart from the 7 Fiend True Demon Monarch's method of refining demonic treasures, everything else has fallen into your hands. Are you still not satisfied?" Lu Kuan kept the 2 jade slips and shook his head. "Forget it, I won't bicker with you. I'll give you less devil stones." As soon as he finished speaking, he tossed a storage pouch to Hun Sha before looking at Su Junwen. Su Junwen sighed lightly, and then he withdrew a jade slip and said, "Fellow Taoist Zhang, I'm in the same situation as well. I only have a single refinement method for fiend treasures as well." Lu Kuan received the jade slip, and his expression eased up slightly after he scanned its contents with his divine sense. "Fairy Su, this isn't bad. It's quite useful to me." After that, he put the jade slip away and tossed a storage pouch to Su Junwen before he shook his head and said, "I've barely completed this last trade. Compared to the gains you've obtained, I'm much more dismal." Hun Sha cursed endlessly in his heart when he heard this. This Zhang Tianbiao relied on his advantage in close combat to seize the storage pouch at the first possible moment, and when they exchanged the refinement method for fiend treasures, the contents of the storage pouch had already been filtered through. Su Junwen discerned the meaning behind Lu Kuan's words, and his gaze flickered as he said, "The last trade? Could it be that fellow Taoist Zhang intends to leave the battlefield of the state of Qi?" Lu Kuan roared with laughter. "The 2 great devil sects have already taken down 8 great resource points. I won't be participating in the final Blood Fiend mountain range." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and shot towards the distance. Hun Sha and Su Junwen had been constantly staring at the direction Lu Kuan left towards. After a long while, Hun Sha said, "There's no powerful soul aura in the vicinity. Looks like this fellow has really left." Su Junwen's eyes turned black and white as he sized up the surroundings, and then he said with slight surprise, "He really has left. Could it be that he doesn't want to participate in the battle at the Bloodfiend Mountain Range?" Hun Sha said, "The Bloodfiend Mountain Range is the Blood Refinement sect's last line of defense. Practically all the nascent soul realm cultivators of our sects will be participating in the battle. If this Zhang Tianbiao appears in the battlefield, then with his terrifying strength, he'll definitely be noticed. It's understandable that he's unwilling to participate. Not to mention that the great cultivators of our sects will be participating." As he said this, Hun Sha's expression suddenly turned somewhat heavy. Su Junwen noticed his expression and said meaningfully, "Old Fiend Origin Fiend still has about 100 years left in his lifespan. I'm afraid that after this battle, Old Fiend Origin Fiend will attempt to break through. If that's the case, your 7 Fiend True Devil Lord." Hun Sha narrowed his eyes and said, "Fairy Su, if you have something to say, just say it." Su Junwen said, with a serious expression, "If Old Fiend Origin Fiend is heavily injured during the battle, I wonder if it'll be of help to you, fellow Taoist Han Sha. Han Sha's pupils shrank. Although our sect's Grand Elder is no match for old Fiend Pang, he's still a great cultivator. Furthermore, our seven Fiend True Devil Lord has already entered the mid-nascent soul realm. As he said this, Han Sha seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed. Could it be that Fairy Su wants me to secretly interfere? Even so, the Yin-Yang Holy Lord might not be able to heavily injure our Grand Elder. Su Junwen shook his head. If it were in the past, that would indeed be the case. However, it's different now. With the help of my secret technique, Su Junwen, the two Holy Lords can erupt with astonishing combat strength for a short period of time. Even if the seven Fiend True Devil Lord and Origin Fiend join forces, they might not be a match for them. Han Sha fell silent for a moment before saying, "If what Fairy Su said is true, why did you tell me so easily?" A fierce look flashed in Su Junwen's eyes. His voice suddenly turned cold. "Because I also want to interfere and deal with our sect's Yin-Yang Holy Lord." Han Sha could not help but be puzzled. Our seven Fiend True Devil Lord has a subtle relationship with our Grand Elder. It's fine if I have some ideas, but Fairy Su is the Yin-Yang Holy Lord's holy child. Why would you? Su Junwen snorted coldly. Those two old things don't have much time left. The reason why they want to facilitate this battle is to seize the blood-refining sect's precious resources in an attempt to increase their chances of breaking through to the soul formation stage. After the battle, they're the same as old Demon Origin Fiend. They are preparing to break through to the soul formation stage. She paused for a moment before saying, "Our sect's cultivation technique is special. The two Holy Lords will perform the Yin-Yang intercourse technique one last time in the Devil's Pool. If they successfully devour the other party's nascent soul, they will be able to generate the power of Yin and Yang to resist the true devil intent. From there, they will have the possibility of entering the soul formation stage." Han Sha could not help but be speechless when he heard this secret. To perform intercourse in the Devil's Pool that was filled with the true devil intent was simply insane. However, the Yin-Yang Holy Sect advocated the dual cultivation of Yin and Yang. Using such a method seemed to make sense. Su Junwen's eyes were cold. It would be fine if that was the case. However, they have set their sights on me. The two old fellows fully supported my cultivation, allowing me to cultivate the Yin-Yang illusion devil technique. They also helped me comprehend a new cultivation technique. All of this is for the pure power of extreme Yin and extreme Yang in my body. Her face was ashen as she said, "They will definitely perform the Yin-Yang intercourse technique with me before they break through. They will absorb the extreme Yin and Yang in my body. This way, their nascent souls will possess a small amount of Yin and Yang energy. Using this as a medium, they will be able to combine the powers of their nascent souls in the Devil's Pool. They will not need to devour each other. If they are lucky, they might be able to break through to the soul formation stage together." Han Sha looked at Su Junwen's voluptuous and beautiful body and thought of her Yin and Yang body. His expression turned strange. If Su Junwen's speculation was true, then she would be attacked by the two old fellows from the front and back. She would be sucked dry. How miserable would that be? Han Sha coughed softly and said, "Fairy Su, what plans do you have? Why don't you tell us?" Su Junwen smiled charmingly. It was filled with a peculiar allure, causing Han Sha to shudder unconsciously. Fellow Taoist Han Sha is the key person in controlling the Seven Fiends fusion technique. If you restrain your strength slightly, a flaw will appear in your joint attack. As for my secret technique, as long as I tamper with it a little, the two old fellows will suffer a temporary backlash. If the Seven Fiends' true Demon Lord seizes the opportunity, Han Sha pondered for a moment and shook his head. The Grand Elder will definitely join forces with the Yin-Yang Sacred Master to deal with the Blood Refinement sect during the battle at the Blood Demon Mountain Range. They will not start a war so easily. Su Junwen covered her mouth and chuckled. This is not difficult. We just need to. Han Sha listened to Su Junwen's rumor. His eyes gradually showed signs of interest. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 921. Lu Kuan was flying high in the sky, a few hundred miles away. He did not know about Su Junwen and Han Sha's scheme. Even if he knew, he would only scoff at it. How could he allow the two demon sects to wreak havoc in the Blood Demon Mountain range? Although the Blood Refining sect had lost many nascent Soul Realm cultivators in the past few years, with Lu Kuan's secret help, the Seven Fiend sect and the Yin Yang sect did not know that Qian Jingshan had already become a grand cultivator. Apart from that, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance did not withdraw from the battlefield like the 5 sects and 3 clans. Instead, they continued to participate in the war. On the surface, it was because of the greed of the Rogue Cultivators. However, the two demon sects did not know the real reason behind it. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance was actually an ally of the Blood Refining sect. With these two hidden forces, in addition to the Blood Demon Mountain Range's home ground and the Blood Refining sect's foundation, what awaited the Seven Fiends sect and the Yin Yang sect was definitely a tough battle. It's easy for the Blood Refining sect's higher-ups to hide Qian Jingshan's cultivation. However, Shi Jingtian of the Miraculous Gate did not leak the news after being tricked by the Blood Refining sect. Following this line of thought, the Blood Refining sect should have appeased Shi Jingtian. Or perhaps, Shi Jingtian used this to threaten the Blood Refining sect. Lu Kuan pondered. No matter which it is, they must have reached some kind of agreement. In the Battle of the 8 Resource Points, the Blood Refining sect lost several nascent Soul Realm cultivators and their strength was greatly reduced. Then, in the Battle of the Blood Demon Mountain Range, Old Devil sure might be the Blood Refining sect's greatest trump card. Qian Jingshan hid his cultivation and Old Devil sure did the same. With 2 grand cultivators hiding in the dark, the Blood Refining sect could easily deal a heavy blow to the two demon sects when they are unprepared. A cold glint flashed in Lu Kuan's eyes. Therefore, Old Devil Sure will most likely head to the Blood Demon Mountain Range. I should also prepare. It has only been 20 years. The strength of the body refining Pavilion's disciples is still lacking. However, I have a preliminary understanding of the Meridian strengthening technique. As long as I can hook you Longfei, the Sky Sword sect will not play any tricks. Various thoughts flashed through his mind as Lu Kuan raised the mystic energy in his body. Accompanied by an ear-piercing explosion, he sped in the direction of the Wei Kingdom. Half a month later, in the Heavenly Sword sect of Wei Nation, a skinny old man with white hair sat cross-legged in the middle of the training room. His face was contorted in pain as his body trembled slightly. Extremely sharp metal elemental mana surged around him. He was at the peak of the completion stage. He was the number 1 core formation cultivator in the Heavenly Sword sect, Lin Ming. Lin Ming's talent was extremely high. Hundreds of years ago, he was the chief foundation establishment disciple and won first place in the sword competition. Through the sharpness of the Sword Valley, he comprehended sword intent at the foundation establishment stage. At the same time, he was also proficient in sword nurturing techniques. As Lin Ming's cultivation level increased, his swordplay became sharper and sharper. After reaching the peak of the completion level, his swordplay became even sharper and sharper. Compared to Yu Longfei back in the day, Lin Ming's swordplay did not pale in comparison. But it was precisely because of this that Lin Ming's meridians were ravaged by the dermic powers of the sword will. After he entered the late core formation stage, he had no choice but to seal 30% of his magic power to prevent the excessively sharp magic power from damaging his meridians. After a long while, Lin Ming slowly opened his eyes. His face was full of bitterness. I've only released 80% of my magic power, and my meridians are already unable to withstand it. Not to mention the green essence sword wine that Master you refined. I'm afraid that my meridians will shatter before the sharpness of the sword will even form. Thinking of this, he sighed. Although my talent is not weak, my luck is shallow. I'm not like Master Yu, who was fortunate enough to consume 1,000-year-old earth essence fruit. My meridians are much more stable than other sword cultivators of the same level. But if my meridians do not improve, the nascent soul stage will be a huge chasm. Lin Ming's mind was filled with thoughts. That's right. I heard from Master Yu that with the help of the mysterious body refining pavilion, we have a great chance of destroying the miraculous gate. Master Yu is a mid-nascent soul stage sword cultivator. His judgment is definitely not wrong. It seems that the battle with the miraculous gate is my last chance. With the foundation of the miraculous gate, they might have treasures that can strengthen my meridians. Just as Lin Ming was thinking, the crisp sound of a sword could be heard from the entrance of the cave. A voice transmission talisman floated in through the crack in the restriction. Master Yu Sword Chi. Does he have any instructions? Lin Ming's divine sense swept over, and a look of fear appeared on his face. He quickly got up and shot out of the cave. At the same time, his hands flashed as he opened a restriction on the door of the cave. Two indiscernible figures flashed past, and two men appeared in the hall of the cave. Lin Ming took a closer look. One of the men was a dark-skinned, middle-aged man. It was the Sky Rapier Sect's great elder, Yu Longfei. As for the other man, he was a burly man with a square face. For some reason, Lin Ming felt that he had seen this man somewhere before. Lin Ming greets Master Yu. Yu Longfei said indifferently, Lin Ming, this is the Master Lu of the Body Refining Pavilion. Lin Ming was shocked. He bowed respectfully and said, Junior greets Senior Lu. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a golden light. He frowned and said, Fellow Taoist Yu, he is the junior you chose? Yu Longfei said, That's right. Martial nephew Lin's sword Qi is extremely pure. He is even stronger than me when I was young. His cultivation is also stuck at the peak of the core formation stage. He is very suitable for Master Lu's secret technique. Lu Kuan said with some displeasure, Fellow Taoist Yu, your martial nephew's meridians have already been damaged. The difficulty has increased by more than just a little. Lin Ming listened to the conversation between the two seniors. He was a little confused. This Senior Lu in front of him should be the mysterious master of the body refining pavilion. He was in existence on the same level as the Grand Elder. Two nascent soul stage cultivators came to his cave abode. They seemed to have some secret technique that required the cooperation of a core formation stage sword cultivator. Yu Longfei seemed to know what Lin Ming was thinking. He said, Lin Ming, Master Lu has a secret technique that can greatly strengthen a sword cultivator's meridians. However, this secret technique is still in its infancy stage. There is a certain risk in using it. If it fails, it may cause your meridians to be completely destroyed. However, if it succeeds, your meridians will become extremely tough and can easily withstand the power of the sword Qi. Are you willing to give it a try? Lin Ming was ecstatic. He said without hesitation, Yes, martial nephew. His expression was as if he had picked up a life-saving straw. Yu Longfei was stunned. Then, he thought of something and sighed softly. He said to Lu Kuan, We will have to trouble Master Lu from now on. Don't worry. Lu still has some confidence. Lin Ming suppressed his excitement and closed the cave abode's restrictions. He said, This place is not suitable for Senior Lu to use the technique. Please move to the training room. After the three of them entered the room with the most spiritual energy in the cave abode, Lu Kuan said, Lin Ming, you must remember that no matter what kind of pain your body is going through, you must not use your mana to resist it. Otherwise, your body will be completely destroyed. Lin Ming gritted his teeth and nodded his head. Then, Lu Kuan's expression became serious. He opened his mouth slightly, and a drop of light silver blood floated out. It floated in midair and emitted a shocking amount of energy. When Lin Ming saw this drop of blood, his body trembled subconsciously. He inexplicably felt an evil and greedy gaze. It was as if someone was observing a delicious meal. The silver blood trembled slightly and sank directly into Lin Ming's chest. That majestic energy flowed into his body through this drop of silver blood. At this moment, the blood in Lin Ming's body seemed to be out of his control. It turned into streams of blood of various sizes and circulated through the meridians in his body. That lean body of his seemed to have received some kind of nourishment and began to swell slightly. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 922. Lin Ming had never experienced something like this before. The immense power of qi and blood flowed into his bones through various small meridians and blood vessels. He could feel the itch in his bones and the swelling of his muscles. There was an inexplicable sense of pleasure. In just a quarter of an hour, the boiling blood had circulated in his body several times. Not only did his body expand, but it also exuded an extremely vigorous aura of qi and blood. This is simply too inconceivable. Senior Lu's drop of blood is actually capable of strengthening my body. Lin Ming felt the changes in his body and was shocked. Then, he thought of something and hurriedly used his divine sense to check his meridians. Didn't Uncle Yu say that Senior Lu's secret technique can strengthen my meridians? Why are my bones and blood strengthened, but my meridians are still the same? Lin Ming suddenly felt a little disappointed. What he wanted was the strengthening of his meridians. What was the use of strengthening his flesh and bones? The extremely sharp magic of a sword cultivator circulated in his meridians and not in his bones and flesh. Did the secret technique fail? Or did my meridians not start to strengthen? Wait, my bones! Ah! Lin Ming's face turned pale and he let out a painful scream. Suddenly, there was an intense pain in the depths of his bones, as if countless ants were gnawing on his bones. Even the words bone marrow could not describe this kind of pain. If his body was not bound by an invisible force, Lin Ming would have jumped up in pain. Unable to move his body, he could only divert his attention. His divine sense locked onto the golden elixir and suppressed the restless sword will and mana. He remembered Lu Kuan's words. No matter what happened, he could not use his mana to resist. What's going on? My flesh. Ah! Lin Ming's screams became more and more shrill. His face became distorted because of the immense pain. Apart from his bones, every inch of his flesh and blood was experiencing an even more intense pain. Lin Ming felt that there was some kind of existence that was devouring his flesh and bones inch by inch. The feeling of his body gradually disappearing made him feel inexplicable fear. Did the spellcasting fail? My body is getting weaker and weaker. My meridians. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a special energy rushing from his blood to his meridians. Strangely, this unfamiliar energy gave him the feeling that blood was dissolved in water. It seemed that his meridians were being strengthened by this energy. Lu Kuan stood to the side, his enormous consciousness and invisible origin force field enveloping Lin Ming's body. He looked at Lin Ming's body, which was beginning to shrink, and revealed a satisfied expression. The meridian strengthening technique that he used was the product of many nascent soul stage cultivators' experiences. This secret technique not only used the strange characteristics of blood vitality, but also combined with Lu Kuan's understanding of the bone transformation stage body. At first, he had wanted to use the demonic qi and blood to give the essence of his own flesh and blood to others through the medium of blood to strengthen their meridians. But after Lu Kuan's experiments, he discovered that his flesh and blood essence could only temporarily strengthen his opponent's meridians. After a while, the strengthened meridians would automatically shatter. After careful consideration, Lu Kuan finally understood that the essence of his flesh and blood was a different kind of energy to immortal cultivators. The bodies of immortal cultivators were naturally repulsive and would reject this kind of strange flesh and blood. Originally, the Hong brothers were able to devour the flesh and blood essence of demonic zombies and monster beasts because they cultivated body refining techniques. They could control the demonic qi and blood in their bodies and only absorb the essence of demonic zombies and monster beasts. Immortal cultivators didn't have body refining techniques, and they didn't have demonic qi and blood in their bodies. When faced with the strange flesh and blood essence, they couldn't actively absorb it. Coupled with the body's repulsive nature, Lu Kuan's previous conjecture of blood vitality replenishment technique couldn't be realized. Encountering this difficulty, he didn't give up. Instead, he cut in from another angle. If the strange flesh and blood essence could be rejected, then what if he used the immortal cultivator's own flesh and blood essence? Before Lu Kuan broke through to the bone transformation stage, he used his demonic qi and blood to condense the flesh and blood to devour the flesh and blood essence of the same origin. If he swallowed part of the essence of the immortal cultivator's muscles, bones, blood, and internal organs with his own essence, would it be feasible to strengthen his veins and nerves with the essence of the immortal cultivator's flesh and blood? Following this train of thought, Lu Kuan destroyed 3 nascent soul stage Dharma bodies and finally created the current meridian strengthening technique. When he cast the technique just now, he separated his demonic qi into spiritual power and demonic qi. Both of them had the characteristic of devouring flesh and blood. Lin Ming was an immortal cultivator who cultivated spiritual power. So Lu Kuan condensed his demonic qi and spiritual power into his blood essence. This drop of blood essence was the primer to devour Lin Ming's flesh and blood essence. Lu Kuan integrated the blood essence into the other party's blood and controlled the blood flow in his body. He dispersed the demonic qi and spiritual power into Lin Ming's bones and muscles in preparation for devouring the flesh and blood essence. Lin Ming's body was swollen, but his flesh and blood didn't strengthen. Next, Lu Kuan used his newly comprehended blood control technique to control his demonic qi and spiritual power. He devoured most of the essence of Lin Ming's bones and muscles and condensed it into Lin Ming's own flesh and blood essence. Finally, he integrated the flesh and blood essence into his meridians to achieve the effect of strengthening his meridians. As for the essence of blood and internal organs, they were the foundation of the immortal cultivator's flesh and blood. They couldn't be devoured, otherwise the flesh would rapidly age and even die. If it wasn't for Su Junwen's failure of the yin-yang intercourse secret technique, Lu Kuan wouldn't have discovered this. 3 days later, Lin Ming turned into a skinny old man. However, his skin didn't wither and was still hale and hearty. Lu Kuan retracted his divine sense and the origin force field that enveloped Lin Ming and said, "Fellow Taoist you, the secret technique has been completed. Just as Lu said before, there are no risks." Yu Longfei didn't answer Lu Kuan. Instead, he looked at Lin Ming anxiously and asked, "Martial nephew Lin, how do you feel?" Lin Ming heard this and was about to stand up. However, he felt his legs weaken and fell to the ground with a plop. His sitting bones hit the ground and made a slight cracking sound. He couldn't help but ask, "How did my flesh become so weak?" Yu Longfei couldn't help but look at Lu Kuan. Lu Kuan chuckled and said, "It's just broken bones. Your weak flesh can be healed with a simple recovery technique. You should feel your meridians." Lin Ming followed his instructions and mobilized his sword will. Then, he revealed a look of ecstasy. The moment he activated his sword will, he found that his meridians became incomparably tough. Facing 70% of his power, his meridians didn't feel any pressure at all. Then, he formed a seal and removed a certain seal in his golden core. An incomparably vigorous sword will surged out and ran freely in his meridians. "This is unbelievable." Lin Ming felt like he was dreaming. A few days ago, he could only use 70% of his power. However, this mysterious owner of the body refining pavilion only used a secret technique to strengthen his meridians to the point that he could easily withstand 100% of his power. So what if his flesh became weaker? As long as his meridians became stronger, the nascent soul stage would no longer be an insurmountable mountain. He would also be able to use even more powerful secret techniques of the way of the sword. The more Lin Ming thought about it, the more excited he became. His thoughts were clear, and the circulation of his sword became smoother. An extremely sharp aura was gradually emitted from his body. Yulongfei felt this aura and was pleasantly surprised. A light flashed in his hand, and a wine gourd appeared. Apprentice nephew Lin, this is an opportunity for the power of sharpness to be formed. Quickly consume the green essence sword wine and try your best to break through to the nascent soul stage. Lin Ming also felt the changes in his body. He immediately took the wine gourd and poured the wine that was emitting a sharp aura into his mouth. He focused his mind and began to break through to the nascent soul stage. Yulongfei turned to look at Lu Kuan and said gratefully, "Master Lu, please stand guard outside the cave and help me conceal the energy waves." Lu Kuan did not expect Lin Ming to be so talented. After his meridians were strengthened, he immediately found the opportunity to form the power of the nascent soul. If other cultivators at the peak of the core formation stage knew about this, they would be mad with jealousy. Yulongfei pondered for a moment and understood the reason. After apprentice nephew Lin entered the late core formation stage, he had sealed away 30% of his power. This extremely sharp power of the metal element had been suppressed for more than 100 years. Now that his meridians were strengthened, it was as if the gate had been opened. The accumulated power inside could be released all at once, and there were signs of a breakthrough. Yulongfei could not help but think. The strengthening of Lin Ming's meridians allowed him to find the opportunity to form the nascent soul. If I, Yulongfei, were to receive such strengthening, what kind of earth-shattering changes would occur in my power? Chapter 923. After staying in the hospital for observation for a period of time, the doctor's plan was to remove a part of his lung. Fortunately, after the operation began, it was discovered that it only needed to be extracted and not removed. It was a false alarm. During this period of time, work has been very busy, so I really don't have the mood to update. Sigh, I feel guilty every day recently. I hurriedly change houses. Cough, cough, I can't afford a 100 square meter house in Shanghai, but I can still afford to rent it. Bring my parents over at the end of the month. Under my watch, my dad should be able to quit smoking. Things are more or less settled, and the updates will gradually stabilize. You may not believe it, but even if I know the outline of the plot, I am still very much looking forward to it. For example, the scene of Lu Kuan breaking through to the bone transformation stage. In 2017, I kept fantasizing about it in my mind and forced myself to wait until 2019 to write it. Once again, thank you for your support for Physique Cultivators. The content in the future will not disappoint you. The ancestor of Physique Cultivators. Everyone hold on. It is in the hands. Please wait a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 924. In a secret room in the Body Refining Pavilion's temporary encampment, a bald monk with solid muscles was lying on a platform. His upper body was naked, and there was a medium-sized hole in the center of his chest. His flesh and internal organs were protected by a light blue spiritual light. The bald monk had a fanatical look on his face as he stared at the sky. There was a long, flat bone that was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. It was burned by a light red flame. This bone was the sternum that was peeled off from his chest. Yu Xian was standing not far away. His hands were burning with dark red flames. He was either pressing or kneading several strands of blood coagulation grass. The latter turned into powder at a speed visible to the naked eye and was thrown into the air by him. Zhu Siming and Qin Yushu stood on either side of the bald monk. Their hands were constantly forming various seals. A vigorous mass of blood essence and the blood coagulation grass powder fused together. Under the guidance of the seals, they sank into the sternum in the air. Gradually, fine lines began to appear on the surface of the sternum. They were as complex as the blood vessels on the human body. Qin Yushu and Zhu Siming had dignified expressions. As master refiners, it wasn't difficult to carve these lines. The real difficulty lay in protecting the sternum, which was made of ordinary materials, while carving it. After about half an hour, The lines on the sternum were completely formed. If one were to look at it in detail, these lines looked like intertwined, blood-red ravines. The ravines all converged at the handle of the sternum, where there was a circular groove. After completing the carving of the lines, Qin Yushu and Zhu Siming looked at each other. The two core formation cultivators' divine senses quickly intertwined and turned into a powerful peak core formation cultivator's divine sense. Then, Zhu Siming waved one of his hands. A blue and black golden core the size of a bean appeared. One after another, mysterious spell seals were launched at the golden core under the control of the enormous divine sense. The golden core started to tremble and black mist started to emerge from it. The golden core started to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although its aura was weakening, it started to emit a pure water attribute aura. Zhu Siming changed his hand seal, and the shrunken water-attributed gold core shot towards the sternum in the air and got stuck in the circular groove on the sternum. Soon after, Qin Yushu threw out a pile of water-attribute mid-grade spirit stones that circled around Huang Xiaolong's sternum. Under the two spell, these spirit stones turned into a thick blue mist that wrapped around Huang Xiaolong's sternum. Zhu Siming's expression became more and more serious as he continuously changed his technique. Rays of spiritual light shot into his sternum, and the blue mist slowly condensed inwards. It took an entire day for the blue mist to completely fuse into his chest, revealing his brand-new sternum. At this time, the Shaojin pill had already disappeared. The blood-red gully on the surface of the sternum was filled with a blue material, forming a unique vein. The surrounding water attribute spiritual energy seemed to be very active. Zhu Siming said in a deep voice, "Monk Fong, the final step is up to you." Looking at the bald monk's determined and fanatical eyes, Zhu Siming gently waved his hand, and the sternum fell down and got stuck in the center of his chest. At the same time, Qin Yushu took out a jade bottle and poured the remaining blood around the sternum, at the joints between the bones. A dazzling blue light soared into the sky and painted the bald monk's strong body blue. Ah! The bald monk let out an excited roar and covered his chest with both hands. All the muscles on his body twitched, and the rich power of qi and blood rose. A large amount of bright red blood essence in his body converged towards his chest and intertwined with the blue spiritual light. The blue spiritual light seemed to show a strong repulsion and wanted to break away, but it was pressed in place by the bald monk. At this time, the surrounding water-attributed spiritual energy seemed to be abnormally active and had a tendency to converge towards Huang Xiaolong's sternum. Zhu Siming and the other two looked at this scene nervously, and their divine sense lingered outside of the sternum. Crack! The sound of bones cracking could be heard. The bald monk seemed to have noticed it, and a complicated look of regret and satisfaction flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, his chest emitted a blue light, and a strong energy burst out, and his sternum exploded. The bald monk's strong body was blown apart by this energy, and his flesh, bones, and limbs were scattered around. The secret room fell into silence for a moment. After a while, Qin Yushu sighed and said, "Although we've perfected the miniature array and lowered the material requirements, the sternum still can't withstand the impact of the energy during the final fusion. Monk Fong's sternum is already one of the best among the outer disciples. The 30 years mentioned by the Pavilion Master may not be enough." Zhu Siming recalled the process just now and said slowly, "Yushu, the current progress is already very fast. You should know that we couldn't even successfully refine the sternum tool spirit root at the beginning. The last few disciples have already reached the final stage of refining and fusing, but these failures seem to be due to something other than the problem of the material." Zhu Siming couldn't help but fall into contemplation. Yuxian didn't participate in the discussion. Dozens of dark red sparks flicked out of her hand and burned the limbs in the secret room to ashes. She collected the ashes into a jade bottle and solemnly put it away. Monk Fong was already the 14th martial artist who volunteered to test the tool spirit root. These martial artists were the best among the outer disciples. They had already cultivated the Vajra tactics to the highest level, and the degree of tempering of their sternum was also very high. Unfortunately, they entered the sect early and only began to temper their sternum in their 60s. With the cultivation of these 20 years, their lives were about to come to an end. In order not to have any regrets, these top martial artists all volunteered to test the tool spirit root. Even if they failed, the experience of fusing the tool spirit root could be passed down to future martial artists. As long as a martial artist successfully produced the tool spirit root and cultivated with a mortal body, their sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. It was also thanks to Lu Kuan, who took advantage of the chaos during the war in the state of Qi and sent back a lot of golden cores. Otherwise, even if some martial artists volunteered, they couldn't have done it. This was because, in addition to various materials, the refining of the tool spirit root required the consumption of golden cores. In the past 6 months, although 14 martial sages whose combat strength was comparable to the late stage of the Qi refining realm and 14 golden cores were destroyed in the experiment, the success was very significant. The creation of the tool spirit root was stuck at the final stage of fusing. Zhu Siming suddenly thought of something and his eyes lit up. All right, did you feel that Monk Fong attracted the surrounding spiritual energy at the last moment? Qin Yushu was slightly stunned and murmured, "That's right, the water element spiritual energy was guided. This can only be done by a real spirit root. The previous martial artists didn't have this phenomenon." Zhu Siming frowned. How did Monk Fong do it? He's obviously one step closer than the others. At this moment, a terrifying divine thought descended in the secret room. Could it be because of the blood essence? Pavilion Master is back. Master, Zhu Siming moved his hand and opened the secret room's restriction. A burly figure appeared in front of everyone. Lu Kuan walked in and looked at the jade bottle in Yuxian's hand. He sighed and said, "I just came back and happened to observe the whole process." Monk Fong seems to have created a physical body technique. He condensed all the blood essence in his body at his chest and tried to use the vigorous blood essence to speed up the fusion of the sternum and tool spirit root. Lu Kuan said regretfully, "Unfortunately, Monk Fong is in his old age and his blood essence is not vigorous enough to resist the power of the spirit root. The sternum is also not strong enough. In the end, he failed." Hearing Lu Kuan's analysis, Zhu Siming's expression changed. He said, "Blood essence. Did Pavilion Master think of a way to solve this problem?" Lu Kuan shook his head. "I have no idea how to refine and fuse the spirit root." He paused for a moment and continued. "However, there's a disciple who is very suitable for the test of the tool spirit root. Even if he fails, his life won't be in danger. He will definitely give us more inspiration." The others looked at each other, not knowing who Lu Kuan was talking about. Chapter 925. A man and a woman were chatting in a cave in the body refining pavilion's encampment. In front of them were a few scattered magic tools. There were long swords, boxing gloves, and a few short sticks that looked like bones. This middle-aged man was wearing black clothes. He had a sturdy body and his right arm was empty. He was a one-armed man. Even so, the aura he exuded was not weaker than any Foundation establishment cultivator. The other woman looked much younger. She had a slender figure and firm skin. Coupled with her heroic appearance, she looked like a heroine of the secular world. The two discussed for a long time. The woman said with admiration, "I didn't expect Senior Brother's understanding of refining to be so deep. I'm afraid you're not inferior to the martial uncles." The middle-aged man said modestly, "Body cultivators study the art of refining for the sake of breaking through to a higher realm. There are many similarities between body refinement and refining. Martial uncles are all studying the direction of their own cultivation, and so am I." The woman looked at the short sticks on the ground and the man's empty right arm. She said thoughtfully, "Senior Brother wants to refine a magic tool to replace your right arm?" The middle-aged man's eyes flashed. He said excitedly, "The arm I want to refine is not as simple as a magic tool. If my judgment is correct, I, Li Qianfeng, even have a chance to reach the bone treasure stage." This one-armed middle-aged man was the senior brother of the body refining pavilion's second-generation disciples, Li Qianfeng. Li Qianfeng was once a victim of the Nine-Spectre sex corpse refining technique. His body was transformed by the cold, yin energy. His cultivation speed of the azure water technique was astonishing. Later, he was accepted into the body refining pavilion by Lu Kun. After officially becoming a body cultivator, his cultivation had always been far ahead. Although his cultivation level was the highest among the second-generation disciples, because he only had one arm, Li Qianfeng's reserves of magic power were much lower than the other disciples. This not only affected his battle strength, but also made it difficult for him to break through to the bone treasure stage in the future. Therefore, after Li Qianfeng entered the blood condensation stage, he put all his energy into refining his arm. He had heard from Yuxian that martial uncle Sher Chao had relied on a magic weapon to strengthen his body, which led to a breakthrough in the bone treasure stage. Then why couldn't Li Qianfeng refine a right arm that was comparable to a magic weapon? Not only could it enhance his strength, but it could also help him break through to the bone treasure stage. He had heard that when the pavilion master was still in the body tempering stage, he was able to work with the elders of the treasure tool pavilion to refine treasures. Now that the body refining pavilion had even more resources, why couldn't Li Qianfeng refine treasures? Li Qianfeng calmed himself down and frowned. "Junior apprentice sister, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you haven't reached the blood condensation realm yet. You should focus on breaking through." The blood condensation stage is the stage where the blood and internal organs are slowly nourished. There is plenty of time to learn refining techniques. Hearing this, the woman's body suddenly surged with a strong metal elemental mana. It was at the peak of the early stage foundation establishment stage. Li Qianfeng was dumbfounded. "Junior apprentice sister, you were the last one to enter the sect. How could you reach the peak of the bone tempering stage so quickly?" The woman didn't show any joy, but said dejectedly, "So what if my cultivation has improved? My refining techniques are too weak compared to the elders of the treasure tool pavilion. I can't participate in the research of the tool spiritual root. Grandpa Fong also went to test the tool spiritual root, but I could only watch." Hearing this, Li Qianfeng sighed softly. Duan Yun's family was destroyed by cultivators. This little girl witnessed the tragic death of her family. She felt the huge gap between mortals and immortals due to the disdain of cultivators for mortal warriors. The purpose of her cultivation was to find more ways for mortal warriors to fight against cultivators. Now, many of the outer sect disciples' tricks to use spirit-controlling celestial devices were researched by Duan Yun. So when she heard that the pavilion master and the elders of the treasure tool pavilion had researched the tool spiritual root, she was pleasantly surprised. However, refining the tool spiritual root not only required high refining techniques, but also the study of the five elements art. Duan Yun's cultivation wasn't enough, so she couldn't participate. Just when Duan Yun was feeling dejected, a huge divine thought appeared out of nowhere. "Haha, little Yun, who said you can't participate in the experiment of the tool spiritual root? Your current cultivation and refining techniques are the most suitable." After hearing this voice, Li Qianfeng and Duan Yun both stood up excitedly and bowed respectfully to the void. Li Qianfeng, Duan Yun, greet the pavilion master. Lu Kuan's divine thought said again, "Little Yun, come to the refining room of the treasure tool pavilion now." "All right, Qianfeng, come here too." Duan Yun was very excited. Her figure flashed and shot out, and Li Qianfeng did the same. The pavilion master was the ancestor of body cultivators, the founder of body cultivators. It was a great honor to be summoned by the ancestor. Lu Kuan informed Duan Yun and Li Qianfeng with his divine thought. At the same time, he also informed Sher Chao and Huang Xiaoyan. At present, There are only 3 first-generation disciples in the valley: Zhao, Qingtian, and Panyan were in the sacred poison sect. Then, with a flash of light in his hand, a jade slip appeared, and he threw it to Zhu Siming. Zhu Siming scanned it with his divine thought and said, "The sword nurturing technique? Isn't this the secret technique of the heavenly sword sect?" Lu Kuan said, "Originally, I was going to give this secret technique to little Yun, but after studying it, I found that it would be of great help to the research of the tool spiritual root." Zhu Siming checked the jade slip briefly and said in confusion, "This should be a secret technique to nurture swords and use the swords to replenish metal elemental magic power. What does it have to do with the tool's spiritual root?" Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with golden light. "The tool's spiritual root is a magic tool refined from the sternum. Why can't body cultivators use a secret technique to nurture the sternum like sword cultivators?" Now, the refinement of the tool's spiritual root is no longer a problem. We are stuck at the stage of fusing the tool spiritual root. But even at the initial stage of fusion, how to nurture the tool's spiritual root, how to ensure that the sternum and the body become one, and how to improve the effects of the tool's spiritual root are all problems that body cultivators have to face. Zhu Siming said thoughtfully, "Pavilion Master means to create a secret technique to nurture the tool's spiritual root based on the sword nurturing technique of the heavenly sword sect." Lu Kuan said, "That's right. The bones of body cultivators in the bone treasure stage have already been shaped. We need a second-generation disciple to test this secret technique. I chose Duani Yun." "Duani Yun? Gold essence body?" Lu Kuan said, "Duani Yun's aptitude is very high. Now, she has reached the peak of the bone tempering stage. The next step is to break her bones and condense her blood and cultivate blood magic power. Her sternum has been strengthened by the bone tempering stage, and its strength is far beyond the requirements of refining the tool's spiritual root. The body of the bone tempering stage has very high recovery power. Testing the fusion of the tool spiritual root will not be life-threatening." Yu Xian listened to Lu Kuan's words and said as if she understood, "The blood of the peak of the bone tempering stage is the same as that of a mortal martial artist. It doesn't contain magic power, but its blood is many times more vigorous. If Duan Yun can use her essence blood to fuse with the tool's spiritual root, then a mortal martial artist can do the same." Then Yu Xian frowned and said, "But with Duan Yun's cultivation, it will be very difficult to create this secret technique." Lu Kuan smiled mysteriously and said, "Have you observed what the sternum looks like?" They were slightly stunned and said in unison, "Short sword." Lu Kuan's eyes showed an inexplicable expression. "That's right. The upper part of the sternum is the hilt of the sword, the middle part of the sternum is the body of the sword, and the lower part is the tip of the sword. Among the bones in the human body, the sternum and the sword are the most similar." He continued, "With Duan Yun's cultivation and the gold essence body, she can completely comprehend this sword nurturing technique. She only needs to use the sternum as a sword to practice the sword nurturing technique. When she performs the sword nurturing technique and nurtures the sternum as a sword, I will observe from the side and guide the circulation of essence blood in her body. I will try to create the body nurturing technique." Chapter 926. Zhu Siming thought for a moment and frowned. Although Duan Yun's aptitude is amazing, and she reached the peak of the bone refining realm so quickly, she can't multitask and mobilize her essence blood at the same time, right? Lu Kuan said, "Don't worry about this. In the past few years, I have comprehended a new secret technique. I can use my essence blood as a medium to control the blood in other people's bodies. The essence blood in Xiao Yun's body will be controlled by me." Hearing this, Zhu Siming finally understood Lu Kuan's train of thought. This sword nurturing technique could only be used by cultivators with metal elemental magic power, and it had to be used on a sword. Lu Kuan wanted to comprehend the sword nurturing technique. In addition to observing the casting process, he also had to test its effect on the weapon's spirit root. Both had to be done at the same time. In this way, Duan Iyun was the most suitable candidate. Duan Iyun had the metal element mana of the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. She only needed to slightly modify her sternum weapon spirit root, and then she could transform it into the most basic sword, and then she could use the sword nurturing technique. At this time, her sternum was both a weapon spirit root and a sword. Lu Kuan could comprehend the uniqueness of the sword nurturing technique while controlling the essence blood in Duan Iyun's body to find a way to nurture her body with a weapon. After a while, the restriction of the secret room opened, and 4 people walked in. The 2 in the lead were Huang Xiaoyan and Sher Chao. Huang Xiaoyan had entered the treasure bone realm using the sword will core condensation art. Even if he restrained his body's arcane energy, his body still exuded a sharp aura, akin to a sharp sword piercing through the sky, impossible to conceal. On the other hand, Zhao Xuaner's aura was stable, and not a single trace of frost aura leaked out. Of all the people present, only Lu Kuan could sense the aura of 2 matured magic treasures in her forearm. The 2 behind were Duan Iyun and Li Qianfeng. They were very nervous to see so many seniors at once. Here were all seniors above the core formation realm, and the Pavilion Master cultivation had reached the nascent soul realm. Duan Iyun and Li Qianfeng greet Pavilion Master and martial uncles. Lu Kuan nodded gently. He first looked at Li Qianfeng and threw him a jade slip. Qianfeng, your idea is very good. I have a new summary of the refining technique. Take it and study it first. Li Qianfeng received the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. He couldn't help being stunned as he said, "This is a Devil Dao artifact refinement technique?" Lu Kuan nodded. "That's right. According to my deduction, using a demonic treasure as your right arm is the most suitable." As he spoke, he tossed a qi refinement technique to Yu Xian and instructed, "Yu Xian, you and Qianfeng comprehend this Devil Dao refinement technique together. I'll look for you later. You can leave first." Although Yu Xian and Li Qianfeng had a lot of doubts in their hearts, they unconditionally believed in Lu Kuan's orders. The 2 of them excused themselves and left the secret chamber. Lu Kuan looked at Duan Iyun again and told her what she was going to do. After listening, the little girl's face was full of excitement. Obviously, she was very excited about personally participating in the research of the tool spirit root. Next, Lu Kuan and Huang Xiaoyan guided Duan Iyun on the sword nurturing technique together. On the other side, Zhu Siming and Qin Yushu were also discussing the refining method of Duan Iyun's breastbone. The bone material of a physique cultivator in the bone tempering stage was extremely high. It was more than enough to refine the tool spirit root. The only trouble was how to add the sword raining miniature array on the tool spirit root. Fortunately, Zhu Siming had once carved the array on Huang Xiaoyan's breastbone. It was just a little troublesome. 3 days later, Duan Iyun was lying flat on the platform of the secret chamber. She was wearing a black inner armor. There was a hole in the middle of the inner armor, revealing the white skin in the middle of her chest. Duan Iyun was very clear about her task. She only needed to treat the tool spirit root as a sword and perform the sword nurturing technique. She didn't need to care about anything else. The Pavilion Master would control her blood in the process and comprehend the body nurturing technique. With this secret technique, the last step of a mortal martial artist fusion with the tool spirit root was basically a success. Lu Kuan stood not far away. 3 jade bottles with surging qi and blood were floating in his hand. They were Duan Iyun's essence blood. Physique cultivators all had the habit of storing essence blood. Physique cultivators who hadn't entered the blood condensation stage had slightly weaker battle endurance. Storing essence blood could ensure their battle endurance. "Are you ready?" Duan Iyun calmed down and said, "Pavilion Master, I'm ready." As soon as she finished speaking, the little girl felt an invisible force acting on her chest. Like spinning silk from a cocoon, her breastbone was delicately peeled out. Then, a thumb-sized drop of silver blood went into the gap at her chest. A layer of silver light film appeared on her bones and flesh, protecting her body. The pain of her breastbone being pulled out was nothing to Duan Iyun. Her attention was all on the air. The calcined breastbone, as well as the tool refining technique performed by Zhu Siming and Qin Yushu. But after observing for a while, Duan Iyun looked frustrated. She couldn't understand the tool spirit root's refining technique at all. Regardless of whether it was the great five elements art or the engraving of miniature spell formations, they were not things that Foundation establishment cultivators could comprehend. Time flew. Different from Monk Fong's refining, Duan Iyun's breastbone was refined very quickly. After only half a day, a breastbone tool spirit root surrounded by pale golden lines appeared in front of everyone. After completing the fusion of the gold core, Zhu Siming controlled his huge divine sense and carefully carved an exquisite sword, controlling formation in the empty space. A trace of faintly discernible sharpness was emitted from the breastbone. Lu Kuan said in a deep voice, "Iyun, perform the sword nurturing technique." Duan Iyun's eyes focused. Her magic power surged rapidly. A pale golden light shot out from her body and entered her breastbone. Her breastbone immediately trembled. The faintly discernible sharpness in this light violently surged. It seemed to be fighting inside the breastbone. But after a while, the breastbone gradually stabilized. A pale golden light spot lit up inside. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed as he observed carefully. The first step of the sword nurturing technique was to condense the magic power seed inside the sword. This seed was the bridge between the sword's own sharpness and the metal elemental magic power. The key to condensing the magic power seed was to find the balance point between the sword and the metal elemental magic power. Duan Iyun had the gold essence body. The metal elemental magic power she cultivated was very special, and the sword was made from her own bones. The condensation of the magic power seed was extremely easy. There were almost no obstacles. When the pale, golden magic power seed was completely formed, Lu Kuan said, return the breastbone to its original position and perform the sword nurturing technique." Duan Iyun nodded excitedly. After condensing the magic power seed, there was an additional layer of connection between her and the breastbone. With a thought, the breastbone returned to her chest. Crack! With the return of the breastbone, the metal elemental magic power in Duan Iyun's body suddenly became active. It gushed out from her original bones and circulated around the breastbone. This was the second step of the sword nurturing technique, nurturing. Through the magic power seed as a bridge, the metal elemental magic power alternated in the sword. Using the sword's own sharpness, it purified the metal elemental magic power, and the sword itself would gradually become more powerful under the support of the magic power over a long period of time. Duan Iyun entered the nurturing stage almost instantly. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with golden light. He looked thoughtful. At this moment, the fusion between Iyun and the breastbone was only on the level of magic power. Her body did not merge with the spiritual root power of the weapon's spiritual root. She only treated the breastbone as a sword. Sword controlling formation, sword nurturing technique, I see, Lu Kuan murmured. At this moment, Duan Iyun suddenly felt that the blood in her body was no longer under her control. The rich essence blood spontaneously condensed her chest. It was divided into slender red threads by an invisible force and rushed towards the complex pale golden patterns on the breastbone. The breastbone seemed to have sensed something. The center of the breastbone lit up with a golden light. A rich metal elemental aura exploded. It trembled crazily, as if it wanted to escape from Duan Iyun's body. But it was suppressed by an invisible force in the distance. It made waves of creaking noises in vain. The red threads formed by the essence blood seemed to be greatly hindered and stopped at the entrance of the patterns. Chapter 9:27. The item spiritual root is just a piece of bone. It becomes a new bone after merging with the power of another person's spiritual root. It is very different from the original body, so there will be a fierce conflict. The first step of the sword nurturing technique is to condense the mana seed. For reference, the first step of the body nurturing technique should be to condense a blood essence seed. Through the blood essence seed, the item's spiritual root can be merged back into the body. Lu Kuan was thinking while controlling Duan Yiyun's blood essence to entangle with the power of the spiritual root. Before the mana seed was condensed, the sword nurturing technique created a unique balance between the miniature sword control formation and the mana, which reduced the conflict between the mana and the sharpness. As soon as he controlled the blood essence to invade the item's spiritual root, the power of the spiritual root resisted fiercely. It was the same when Monk Fong activated the blood essence. The key now was to find a way to balance the conflict between the power of the spiritual root and the blood essence. As long as the two reached a balance, he could try to condense the blood essence seed in the sternum. But there was another problem. The sword nurturing technique communicated with the sword control formation and the power of metal. This was the spell of the immortal cultivators. Mortal warriors could only control it with their divine sense and blood essence. Although the spiritual root power of an item's spiritual root is weak, it is still a high-level energy for mortals. The only energy that mortal martial artists can use is their blood essence, which is more powerful than that of a chi condensation stage cultivator. Lu Kuan carefully observed the light golden veins on the sternum. His eyes suddenly brightened. I got it. He controlled Duan Yiyun's blood essence. It didn't directly resist the surging power of the spiritual root. Instead, it turned into smaller blood threads and extended outside the light golden veins. These blood threads extended from the light golden veins and intersected with each other. They first connected at the outermost part of the sternum, then extended along the spiritual root to the depths of the sternum. The sternum trembled slightly. The power of the spiritual root became sometimes strong and sometimes weak. The blood thread network seemed to sense the change of the power of the spiritual root and repeatedly changed the route. Gradually, the metal spiritual chi around the sternum began to fluctuate. The power of the spiritual root was completely stabilized. Except for the light, golden veins on the surface of the sternum, there were dozens of small blood thread networks around the center of the sternum. Lu Kuan waved his hand, and a stream of dense blood essence gushed out from Duan Yiyun's body, rushing towards her sternum. This time, there was only a slight fluctuation in the power of the spiritual root. The blood essence flowed to the center of the sternum through the network of blood threads. This method really works. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with excitement. The method he thought of was to use the light golden meridians that carried the power of the spiritual root as the main arteries in the human body. The network of blood vessels was the blood capillaries he had created based on the feedback from the power of his spirit root. The purpose of the blood capillaries was to channel the power of his spirit root and ease the conflict between it and his blood essence. After the two reached a balance, he imitated the sword nurturing technique and used his blood essence as dermic powers to try to condense a blood essence seed. The capillary network, the spirit root meridians, and the essence blood can all pass through. The seeds should be condensed like this. With the passage of time and the injection of Duan Yiyun's essence blood, a small red suddenly appeared in the center of his sternum and expanded rapidly. When the red dot expanded to the size of a fingernail, the metal element spiritual chi in the secret room suddenly fluctuated and rushed towards the sternum. Lu Kuan's expression changed. He threw out a dozen middle-grade spiritual stones and injected a large amount of metal element spiritual chi into the sternum. The golden light on the tool's spiritual root became more dazzling. Boom! The golden light turned into a wave and went into Duan Yiyun's body. An even more shocking metal element spiritual chi burst out from her body. It worked. Lu Kuan was pleasantly surprised when he sensed the strong aura of the metal spiritual root. He sensed through her blood that Duan Yiyun's sternum had merged with her body. There was no resistance from the power of the spiritual root. Obviously, The secret technique he had created had successfully merged with the tool's spiritual root. The most important thing was that this secret technique could be performed by mortal warriors. Lu Kuan had comprehended the blood control technique from Bloodfang's secret technique a few years ago. He only needed to simplify it, and mortal warriors could control their blood flexibly with their divine sense and body's essence blood. The first step of merging with the tool's spiritual root was to control the blood and draw a network of capillaries on the sternum to balance the power of the spiritual root. The second step was to condense more essence blood and condense the essence blood seed in the center of the sternum through the blood network and the spiritual root. Once the essence blood seed was formed, the tool's spiritual root would merge with the original body. The power of the spiritual root would appear on the body, and the mortal warrior would have acquired spiritual roots. The others in the secret room were also excited. Mortal cultivators. This was simply subverting the rules of the immortal cultivation world. With the tool, spiritual root, the body refining pavilion would have the largest foundation of disciples in the immortal cultivation world. The most common people in this world were not immortal cultivators, but mortals. Just when everyone was excited, Duan Iyun suddenly let out a painful groan. The metal element spiritual qi in her body surged violently and crazily gathered at her sternum. The already merged sternum vibrated incessantly, as if it was about to explode. Everyone became nervous again. This seemed to be very similar to the scene of Monk Fong's last moment. Could it be that Lu Kuan's secret technique of merging the tool's spiritual root had failed? Huang Xiaoyun felt the violent metal element spiritual qi and hurriedly said, "Master, Iyun originally had the gold essence body, and her spiritual qi was extremely pure. Now, the spiritual qi is condensing toward her sternum. It's too violent, and the sternum seems to be unable to withstand it." Lu Kuan obviously saw it too. He stretched out his palm, and a huge void force wrapped around Duan Iyun's sternum, suppressing the violent spiritual qi inside. He showed a thoughtful expression. Iyun is a body cultivator in the bone tempering stage, and her bones can already contain liquid spiritual qi. The appearance of the tool, spiritual root in the sternum is equivalent to the appearance of a converging point similar to the golden elixir in the body. Wait, the situation of this spiritual qi. Huang Xiaoyun's expression froze and also seemed to have thought of something. He said in disbelief, "Master, this is the opportunity for the formation of the sword will mana." Lu Kuan suddenly said, "Why didn't I think of it?" The sword nurturing technique is a secret technique created by the ancient sword cultivators to comprehend the sword will. Iyun has the gold essence body, and the merged sternum not only contains the sword, but also the power of the gold essence spiritual root. The appearance of the opportunity for the sword will mana is simply a matter of course. He continued, "Iyun, hurry and teach Iyun the method of condensing the mark of sword will. Only by condensing the mark of sword will the violent spiritual qi calm down. Otherwise, without my suppression of the sternum, it will explode from the violent spiritual qi." Huang Xiaoyun said blankly. In other words, Iyun's mark of sword will has to be condensed on her sternum. But master, the condensing of the mark of torso with Iyun's body, she may not be able to. Lu Kuan interrupted. Her sternum has been refined and is already the strongest bone in her body. It can even withstand the power of the gold core, not to mention a mark of sword will. Then he looked at the pale Duan Iyun and said, "Iyun, now is your biggest opportunity. Concentrate on comprehending the method of condensing the sword will, and transform your spiritual qi into sword will mana." Duan Iyun heard the conversation between the two and was somewhat at a loss. She didn't know what mana of sword will was, but she was no stranger to the condensing of the physical mark of body. She knew that this was a necessary stage in the hardened body stage. After hearing Lu Kuan's instructions, she focused her mind, and regardless of the abnormality of her sternum, she concentrated on comprehending the method of condensing the sword will that Huang Xiaoyun transmitted to her. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed. He didn't expect at first that Duan Yiyun, a body cultivator in the heart and bone stage, would have such a change after merging with the sword spirit root. Doesn't that mean that all body cultivators who practice the gold essence physical exercise technique can comprehend the sword will in this way? M.
Chapter 928. After a body cultivator entered the bone tempering stage, they needed to condense attribute imprints in their bones to increase the absorption and circulation efficiency of their magic power, thus accelerating the tempering of their body. Normally speaking, the arm bone imprint will be condensed in the bone tempering stage. The leg bone imprint would be condensed in the blood condensation stage. As for the torso imprint on the chest, it could only be condensed in the viscera forging stage. Otherwise, the internal organs would be damaged by the imprint's magic power. Duan Yiyun was a little different. Her sword spirit root had already gathered more than half of her body's magic power. The incomparably violent energy circulated in her sternum. Unless her sternum exploded, the magic power would not be enough to affect her internal organs. It could completely bear the sword will imprint. One day later, Duan Yiyun comprehended the method of condensing the sword will imprint with the help of her gold essence body. And Lu Kuan removed the wrapping of the void power. Duan Yiyun clenched her teeth and pressed her hands on her chest. The power of her divine sense surged. The violent magic power seemed to be guided and fluctuated at a unique frequency. The vibration of her sternum eased a lot, and she didn't feel like it was going to explode at any time. Hum! Accompanied by the sound of the sword, an incomparably sharp aura of magic power rose from Duan Yiyun's chest. The sword with magic power was like new blood, gushing out from her sternum and spreading throughout her bones. The sharp magic power circulated in her bones. The bone-piercing cold feeling made Duan Yiyun's delicate body tremble. There was an indescribable pain. Lu Kuan waved one hand, and a drop of light silver blood flew out from the wound on Duan Yiyun's sternum. He thought for a moment and said, "Yun, the sword will magic power has just formed. The opportunity can't be missed. I'll help you break through the bone tempering stage." Then Duan Yiyun felt an invisible vibration coming in from outside her body. Intense pain spread throughout her body. She was horrified to find that all her bones were suddenly shattered. Why aren't you concentrating on circulating your magic power to attack your bone marrow? Duan Yiyun hurriedly concentrated and guided the sword with magic power to attack the depths of her bones. She, who had already entered the peak of the bone tempering stage, naturally knew how to break through the blood condensation stage. She needed to break every inch of her bones and channel her magic power into the depths of her bone marrow to generate blood magic power. She didn't expect the ancestor to be able to shatter the bones in her body without harming the other parts of her body. She couldn't imagine how he did it.
The rich metal spiritual aura flooded into Duan Yiyun's sternum, turning into the pure spiritual power of the sword intent that filled her entire body. The extremely sharp spiritual power of the body rushed into the depths of her bones through the cracks. Duan Yiyun was pleasantly surprised to find that this sword intense mana was much stronger than her original mana. It actually rushed into her bone marrow cavity without any hindrance. Soon after, a tingling sensation came from the depths of her bones. Lu Kuan observed from the side and nodded lightly. Duan Yiyun's sword spirit root had completely stabilized. Her sword intent magic power was extremely sharp, and its penetrative power was stronger than other magic powers. She easily passed the bottleneck of the blood condensation realm. He asked everyone to leave the secret chamber. Duan Yiyun had just broken through. She needed a few more days to transform her blood. Zhu Siming and Qin Yushu returned to the cave. They summarized their experience of refining the weapon spirit root and perfected some details. After all, the quality of Duan Yiyun's sternum was much higher than that of ordinary warriors. They had to make a precise judgment of the quality of her bones. Lu Kuan and his two disciples went to the high tower in the center of the valley. He held a jade slip in his hand. His consciousness surged, and he recorded the secret technique he had just created. 15 minutes later, Lu Kuan threw the jade slip to Huang Xiaoyan and share chow. He slowly said, "This body-refining weapon spirit art is a small part completed. You guys take a look first." Huang Xiaoyun and Share Chow took the jade slip and immersed their consciousness into it. At the beginning of the secret technique, it talked about the method of controlling blood. Even though they were at the bone treasure realm, it was still a great inspiration for them. They strengthened their control of blood. After the blood control method, it was the secret technique of fusing the weapon spirit root. It was how to construct a capillary network, balance the power of the blood essence and the spirit root, and condense the blood essence seed. After a while, Huang Xiaoyan showed a thoughtful look. He said, "Master, the next step of the secret technique is it to use the blood essence seed to cultivate the weapon spirit root by referring to the sword refining technique. It seems that this method of cultivation is also of great help to the early stage of the bone treasure." Lu Kuan said, "Yes, the weapon spirit root is a kind of low-level magic tool. The bones of the early stage of the bone treasure can be regarded as the top magic tool. If the weapon spirit root can be cultivated, the bone treasure can naturally be cultivated as well. If the blood essence seed is condensed in each bone, at least the recovery power of the bone treasure will be greatly enhanced." With the cooperation of the blood demon refining technique, the speed of the bone treasure becoming a treasure should be increased a lot. Lu Kuan said meaningfully, "But this method still needs you to explore." Huang Xiaoyun's eyes lit up. Disciple understands now. The body refinement technique is something master comprehended based on the sword refinement technique. Furthermore, I'm at the treasure bone realm after condensing my sword intent into a dan. My bones can be considered as a sword. Then I can also use the sword refining technique on my bones to try to perfect the body refining technique. Lu Kuan said, "The secret technique I gave you is just a primer. There's a lot of content that can be extended. It not only needs you to perfect it, but also needs the warriors to practice it personally. After all, the success rate of this method is still very low for the mortal warriors to refine the weapon spirit root." Huang Xiaoyan and Share Chow nodded silently. Not to mention other things, the blood control method at the beginning of this secret technique had a high requirement for the power of the divine sense. The more condensed and profound the divine sense was, the more precise the control of the blood would be to successfully complete the carving of the capillary network. In addition to the divine sense, the whole fusion process also required a large amount of blood essence. Duan Yun was a body cultivator at the peak of the bone tempering realm, so her blood essence was several times more abundant than that of the mortal warriors. This was why she could successfully complete the fusion of the weapon spirit root. Lu Kuan walked to the edge of the tower. Looking at the warrior disciples in the valley, he said slowly, "With the power of the divine sense, you can refine some medicine that can temporarily enhance the divine sense. They are only at the middle stage of the Qi refining realm. The Sacred Poison sect has this kind of medicine, so it is not rare. Later, I will ask Lil Du to refine some. As for the blood essence, I got the recipe of the blood essence pill from the 9 Serenities sect from the Sky Rapier sect. If you replace the main ingredient with the warrior's own blood essence, the effect will increase a lot and can replenish the warrior's blood essence." Speaking of this, he took out a jade slip and threw it to Share Chow. "Shue, take the recipe of the blood essence pill to Qing Tian. Then call him and Xiaoyan back. As for the secret technique of the weapon spirit root, most of the warrior's sternum has not met the requirements, so there is no need to rush." Lu Kuan looked in the direction of the Wei Kingdom and said coldly, "Prepare yourselves. In a month, our war will officially begin." Huang Xiaoyan and Share Chow were stunned at first, but then they showed excitement. Chapter 9:29. For the next half a month, all the cultivators in the Valley of the Body refining pavilion were busy. The body cultivators gathered together and practiced in groups to improve their teamwork. The mortal cultivators were mostly practicing the techniques of spirit controlling artifacts. Several blacksmithing rooms were filled with the sound of hammering. The flame was bright. The treasure tool pavilion and several disciples who were proficient in blacksmithing were refining spiritual, controlling instruments one after another, trying to equip all the warriors who had reached the grand completion of the Vajra incantation. The pill refining rooms didn't stop either. Along with the smell of blood and herbs, bottle after bottle of blood chi pills were being refined. After the refinement of the blood chi pill, it was practically tailor-made for body cultivators. It could replenish large amounts of blood chi. Besides healing, it could also increase one's endurance in battle. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Kuan had plundered a lot of resources from the nascent soul stage old monsters in the state of Qi, he probably wouldn't have been able to withstand such consumption. Not far away, the spirit transformation sect's disciples were also making preparations for the upcoming battle. From time to time, the roars of ferocious beasts could be heard coming from the barrier. On the high tower in the valley, Yu Xian and Li Qianfeng stood respectfully in front of Lu Kuan. Lu Kuan stroked a jade slip in his hand and slowly said, "This demonic Dao artifact refining method is all about some basic structures and miniature arrays. It doesn't involve the actual refining of magic treasures. With your attainments in artifact refining, you should have more or less comprehended it." "Yes, master." Lu Kuan asked, "What do you think?" Yu Xian hesitated for a moment and said, "According to my understanding, the structure of demonic artifacts is similar to that of normal artifacts. It's just that the miniature arrays are different. Master's refining technique only has a single structure, as if it was specially prepared for a special demonic artifact." Li Qianfeng's eyes also revealed the same doubts. Lu Kuan said meaningfully, "Don't you feel that the structure of this refining technique is somewhat familiar?" Yu Xian heard this and suddenly remembered what Lu Kuan had said before. Her eyes lit up and she said, "It's the bones." This refining technique describes a three-layered structure that completely corresponds to the bone's periosteum, bone, and bone marrow cavity. It's impossible for immortal cultivators to have such refining techniques. "Master, did you come up with it?" Lu Kuan nodded, his eyes flashing with an inexplicable look. "I've been researching bone transformation weapons these past few years. Once a body cultivator enters this realm, they completely break away from the cultivation system of immortal cultivators. The demonic energy in the body is an energy that exists specifically for tempering the body. The magical treasures of traditional immortal cultivators are simply unable to withstand its tyrannical power." Lu Kuan looked at the jade slip in his hand and sighed. Demonic energy is somewhat related to the demon race. It was born from the bones of body cultivators, and only demonic Dao treasures with such a structure as bones can bear it. I've referred to a large number of refinement methods for demonic treasures, and finally concluded that this artifact structure is similar to a skeleton. Yu Xian looked at Li Qianfeng's empty right arm and said hesitantly, "Then Master wants us to comprehend." Lu Kuan didn't answer. Instead, he sighed. "Even so, the refinement method for bone transformation weapons is still far from complete. I've refined a simple demonic treasure. This kind of bone structure can indeed store demonic energy, but when the demonic energy starts to circulate, the miniature array I designed can't even withstand it for a moment before collapsing." Lu Kuan raised his right hand, and a small silver ball emerged. Then it separated into black and white energy. The two violently trembled, emitting bursts of destructive aura. Demonic energy is a mixture of qi and blood, demonic energy and spiritual power. After circulating it outside the body, the two will erupt with destructive power. I want to research a type of array pattern that can at least withstand the destructive power for a short period of time. Although Yu Xian heard Lu Kuan talk about qi and blood demonic energy, she didn't know that this evil energy was a component of bone transformation demonic energy. He felt the destructive aura in Lu Kuan's hand and couldn't imagine how this violent energy could be stored in the body. Lu Kuan mobilized the life force in his body, and the two energies merged again. He sighed. "It's a pity that this material requires the bones of an ancient demon. If I were to refine a demonic treasure for research, I'm afraid the materials I have won't be able to withstand the consumption. After hearing Qianfeng's idea that day, I had a new idea. Since ordinary magic treasures and arrays can't support my destructive power, what if its foundation establishment level spiritual power and qi and blood demonic energy? Speaking of this, Lu Kuan looked at Li Qianfeng. His expression was serious. Qianfeng, are you willing to accept the demonic arm I refine and help me comprehend the refinement of a body cultivator weapon? Although the demonic arm is an external object, you will still bear a great risk. Li Qianfeng was slightly stunned. He didn't understand what Lu Kuan said about demonic energy and qi and blood demonic energy. He didn't know where the danger was. He said without hesitation, as long as I can help martial ancestor, even if it's life-threatening, Qianfeng will have no complaints. Lu Kuan might not know, but after the success of the artifact spirit root, all the disciples of the body refining pavilion worshipped him to the extreme. The body refining pavilion not only helped martial artists with inferior spirit roots to enter the immortal cultivation world, but also gave millions of mortal martial artists the opportunity to cultivate as a mortal. Li Qianfeng didn't have a right arm. Even if he had both arms, as long as Lu Kuan said the word, he wouldn't hesitate to cut off his arm to help Lu Kuan comprehend the secret technique. Lu Kuan was surprised by Li Qianfeng's reaction. He shook his head and said, "Don't worry, your life won't be in danger. In the worst-case scenario, you'll have to cultivate a cultivation method called the cloudy body refining art. Although this cultivation method is flawed, you won't be able to enter the bone transformation stage, but you'll still be able to cultivate to the great circle of core formation." When Yu Xian heard the cloudy body refining art, he immediately thought of qi and blood demonic energy. He looked at Li Qianfeng's empty right arm and vaguely understood Lu Kuan's idea. His eyes gradually widened. Li Qianfeng's tone became more determined. "Martial ancestor, please instruct me." Lu Kuan gently nodded. "Risk and opportunity coexist. This is also your opportunity. I will refine a magic weapon according to the bone structure of your arm. Next, you'll have to cultivate a special demonic energy in your meridians. It's the qi and blood demonic energy I mentioned before." Li Qianfeng revealed a blank expression. "Qi and blood demonic energy?" Lu Kuan explained. "Qi and blood demonic energy is the energy of a cultivation method called the cloudy body refining art. This energy is evil and greedy. It parasitizes the body and devours the essence of flesh and blood to strengthen itself. It's like a parasite. However, after my modifications, the qi and blood demonic energy can transfer the essence of flesh and blood within the body. Qianfeng, you've entered the blood condensation realm. You've broken through the boundary between bones and blood. You can use your blood as a guide to circulate the qi and blood demonic energy, devouring part of the flesh and blood essence of your body to strengthen your demonic arm. If the qi and blood demonic energy can successfully reform the flesh and blood on your demonic arm, you'll be able to truly wield it like an arm. With the strength of the demonic treasure, your combat strength will greatly increase. As for the qi and blood demonic energy, it will be sealed in your demonic arm, isolated from your main body, protecting its safety, devouring the body, and reforming the flesh and blood on the demonic arm." Li Qianfeng and Yu Xian were dumbstruck. Lu Kuan continued. "The process of fusing with the demonic arm is extremely risky. If the qi and blood demonic energy accidentally escapes your control, it will devour most of your body. At that time, you can only cultivate the cloudy body refining art." Li Qianfeng didn't show the slightest fear. Instead, he asked, "Then how can disciple help martial ancestor?" Lu Kuan slowly said, "With the guidance of your blood, you can circulate your qi and blood demonic energy and transcendence energy in your demonic arm at the same time. The two will intersect and produce a destructive force. Because the demonic arm is a magic treasure, and your qi and blood demonic energy and transcendence energy are at most at the foundation establishment realm, the destructive force won't be able to damage the demonic arm at all. I can repeatedly experiment with new array patterns. After saying that, Lu Kuan took out several purplish-black bones and a pile of materials. Yu Xian, you have the deviant flame. Help me refine these materials. Qianfeng, I'll teach you the qi and blood demonic energy cultivation method. Focus on comprehending it. Yes, master. Yes, martial ancestor. First set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book dweller. Chapter 9:30. Lu Kuan taught Li Qianfeng the cloud body refining art, while letting him disperse his body's magic power. Li Qianfeng hadn't entered the bone treasure realm, so he couldn't crystallize his body's magic power into the depths of his bones. Only by dispersing it could he avoid the conflict between his magic power and blood magic power. The body of a blood condensation realm body cultivator couldn't withstand the destructive power of the two types of energy. The cloud body refining art wasn't difficult. After confirming Li Qianfeng's comprehension, Lu Kuan used some magic materials and magic stones to arrange the origin formation of the cloud body refining art. Qianfeng, with your vigorous blood essence, it's easy for you to cultivate blood magic power. Just listen to my instructions. Li Qianfeng nodded seriously and walked into the origin formation. He sat cross-legged and operated his consciousness in a unique way. The formation below him gradually lit up with a black light, and waves of magic power rushed into his meridians. Lu Kuan turned his head to look in Yu Xian's direction. Although these demon bones were level 7 demonic weapons, they had already been softened by the power of the primordial yang earth fire. Yu Xian continued to burn them with a heavenly fire. Yes, master. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with a golden light. He stretched his hand into the magic bones wrapped in heavenly fire, and his 10 fingers moved nimbly. After years of research, Lu Kuan determined that magic bones were a necessary material for bone transformation realm weapons. In addition to its affinity for magic power, it was also divided into 3 layers like human bones, corresponding to the periosteum, bone, and marrow cavity. After a while, gray, black, and purple materials were separated from the softened magic bones by Lu Kuan. Along with the surge of his body's origin power, the gray material was shaken in a powder by the invisible force of the void and put into a jade bottle. The black material continued to float above the heavenly fire. The purple material was kneaded by Lu Kuan. With the brute force of his hands and the power of the void, the purple material gradually turned into many hollow bones of different lengths, corresponding to the arm's humerus, upper arm bone, ulna, radius, lower arm bone, and the palm bone. It was the most basic marrow cavity structure. At this time, he took out a pile of light red herbs that emitted dense magic power and gently rubbed them in the heavenly fire, turning them into liquid. Lu Kuan waved his fingertips, sticking the dark red liquid on his fingertips, and began to carve magic patterns outside the marrow cavity. After entering the bone transformation realm, the hands of a body cultivator were the best forging hammers. Together with the power of the void, the efficiency of forging was much higher than before. The only flaw was that he needed someone else to provide the flame. Magic essence of his heavenly fires was S spirit. S was refining magic power. S magic. So after the demon essence stone melted, Lu Kuan fused it with the black material beside it, attaching it to the bone marrow cavity and refining the bone layer. Li Qianfeng felt the weak magic power in his meridians, and his eyes flashed with horror. This magic power was only at the first stage of qi refining, but it exuded a greedy gaze, staring at his body as if it was looking at some kind of food. Is this blood magic power? Although this magic power was very weak, and he could easily control it with his divine sense, he still felt a chill run down his spine. Lu Kuan seemed to be aware of Li Qianfeng's success. He ordered, Qianfeng, Transfer 10% of your blood essence to your meridians for the blood magic power to devour. I'll teach you how to transfer your blood essence. Li Qianfeng nodded and followed Lu Kuan's instructions, transferring his blood essence to his meridians. The blood magic power, as if it had seen an incomparably delicious food, suddenly rushed over. The surrounding array formation gushed out a large amount of magic power, and the blood magic power grew at an extremely fast rate. Under Lu Kuan's guidance, the blood magic power devoured 30% of Li Qianfeng's blood essence and grew to the middle stage of qi refining. At this time, the demonic arm's bones was also finished. The incomparably black right arm flew to Li Qianfeng's side, and the tip of the arm bone was attached to Li Qianfeng's right shoulder joint. Lu Kuan said in a deep voice, "Qianfeng, concentrate on controlling the blood magic power. Follow my divine senses guidance and transfer it into your blood." Li Qianfeng's expression was solemn. He concentrated on controlling the blood magic power in his meridians, guiding it into his blood vessels. This blood magic power had absorbed 30% of his blood essence, but it was incompatible with the blood in his body, as if they were two different kinds of energy. He followed Lu Kuan's assess flesh transfer technique while carefully transferring the blood magic power to his shoulder joint. Lu Kuan nodded in satisfaction. He said, "The refinement of the outermost layer of the periosteum requires the cooperation of your blood magic power. It will return the blood essence and form a fine blood vessel network." Li Qianfeng was slightly stunned. He immediately thought of the net-like demonic patterns described in the demonic refining technique. Wasn't it equivalent to the blood vessel network in the periosteum? Muscles and bones were connected by tendons, and the key to the connection between tendons and bones was the fine blood vessel network in the periosteum. The body cultivator's flesh regeneration was also closely related to this. If he used his blood essence to carve out this blood vessel network, he would form a connection with the demonic arm. I will guide you with my divine sense to help you carve out the blood vessel network. Your mind must focus on the blood magic power. If you lose your mind, the blood magic power will go out of control and your body will be in danger. Li Qianfeng didn't dare to slack off. When he was transferring the blood magic power, he already felt the evil energy's greed for his body. Following the control of his divine sense, several dark, red, misty tentacles appeared on the surface of his right shoulder joint and impatiently stuck to the demonic arm bone. The main material of the demonic bone was the body of a demon. Although the blood magic power of the qi refinement level could not devour the bones of a grade 7 demonic soldier, the powerful aura of the demon's body was extremely tempting to the blood magic power. Li Qianfeng only needed to control it slightly, and the greedy energy attached itself to it. Then he used the secret method Lu Kuan taught him. Drop by drop, the blood essence was spat out and started to weave a blood vessel network on the surface of the bone. Lu Kuan took out 2 jade bottles at this time. One was the gray powder he had put away earlier, and the other was a strange black liquid. Lu Kuan first sprinkled the gray powder on the newly formed blood vessels, and then injected the black liquid. After the two mixed, it immediately formed a hard gray periosteum layer that covered the blood vessels. After 10 to 12 hours, the periosteum layer was completely refined. The entire demonic arm bone exuded an incomparably deep demonic aura. However, it only stuck to Li Qianfeng's shoulder joint and didn't connect with the bone. Lu Kuan said, "Qianfeng, the demonic bone has been formed. The last step is to use the blood magic power to absorb the essence of your muscles and spit it out on the demonic treasure. Then, it will follow the blood vessel network and grow the muscles of the demonic arm." Li Qianfeng's face was pale. Although he had Lu Kuan's divine sense to guide him, it was still a bit difficult for him. Hearing Lu Kuan's instructions, he pulled himself together and once again mobilized the blood magic power. After the periosteum layer was successfully refined, the blood magic power could circulate through the blood vessel network in the demonic bone and body. Because it had lost a lot of blood essence, it had fallen to the early qi refinement level and was much easier to control. Then, under Lu Kuan's guidance, Li Qianfeng circulated the blood magic power and slowly devoured the essence of his flesh and blood. Then it was spat out through the blood vessel network and gradually formed the tendons, fascia, and muscles of the demonic arm. Half a day later, Li Qianfeng's sturdy body had shrunk. The bare demonic arm bone on his right side had disappeared, and in its place was a skinny right arm with shriveled muscles. Chapter 9:31. Is this the demonic arm? Li Qianfeng slowly raised his thin and shriveled right arm. His eyes flashed with disbelief. The thin and weak muscles on the arm were transmitting nerve signals to him. The cold and hard demonic bone, the blood mixed with demonic qi, and the fine muscle fibers could all be sensed. Lu Kuan's hanging heart also relaxed. He had deduced the feasibility of using demonic qi to generate flesh on the demonic bone. Once the demonic qi went out of control, Li Qianfeng's path as a body cultivator would be completely cut off. The risk was not small. Lu Kuan observed the shriveled arm and suddenly said, "Qianfeng, try to mobilize your demonic qi and add it to the demonic arm's muscles." Li Qianfeng lightly exhaled and manipulated the demonic qi to circulate through the muscle fibers and blood vessels of the demonic arm. "Wait, my arm." His eyes widened as he watched his demonic arm expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. The slender muscles gradually bulged, and even the blood vessels were filled. It was even thicker than his left arm. A feeling of power filled the demonic arm. Li Qianfeng couldn't help but smash the ground under his feet. Bang! A black brick on the ground was easily smashed into pieces. Li Qianfeng's somewhat calm mood surged again. If he wasn't mistaken, the strength of his arm was less than 5,000 kilograms, equivalent to the brute force of a muscle refining stage body cultivator. But the black copper here was hard. If he used his left arm with the strength of a blood condensation stage cultivator, he wouldn't be able to smash it open. This result was obviously because the demonic arm was a magic treasure. Its material was far superior to the black copper floor tiles. Moreover, this strike just now had given Li Qianfeng a deeper understanding of blood essence. This energy was truly strange to the extreme. When it was not used, it would tightly lock in the essence of his flesh and blood. Only when he actively circulated it would it release the essence, allowing his muscles to exert their strength. It really is the characteristic of demonic qi and blood. The refinement was a success. Lu Kuan's expression was somewhat excited. After so many years, his understanding of demonic qi and blood had become deeper and deeper. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to create a method to strengthen the meridians and transfer the essence of a cultivator's flesh and blood to the meridians. Since essence could be added to the meridians, then a body cultivator in the blood condensation realm could use the demonic qi in their blood to transfer the essence of their flesh and blood to the bones of their demon arms. Judging from the attack just now, Li Qianfeng's qi and blood had truly taken up residence in the demonic arm. Although Li Qianfeng couldn't activate the demonic artifact's power and the demonic arm's muscles weren't that strong, he could still display a tyrannical attack power by relying on the demonic arm's material. Lu Kuan said slowly, "Qianfeng, the qi, blood, and demonic power are in the demonic arm. It won't affect your cultivation of your physical body and mana. You should recover your mana first. In a while, try the destructive force produced by your demonic power and mana in the demonic arm." Li Qianfeng nodded seriously. He took out a few spirit stones and operated the elemental flame body tempering art to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy. His muscles, bones, blood, and magic power began to recover. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with anticipation. The blood vessel network in the demonic arm, as well as the miniature array outside the bone marrow cavity, were researched by him by combining the strengthening array and the elemental spirit array. The elemental spirit array also simulated the origin energy circulation method of the Zhenyuan palm, although the demonic energy would still separate without the support of life force. The demonic energy could be stored in the bone marrow cavity for a short period of time through the demonic bone's magic treasure. But when he operated the demonic energy in the demonic bones array, the demonic energy that hadn't separated would still emit a destructive force, damaging the structure inside. In other words, even if he had the support of life force in the demonic bone, the destructive force would still appear more or less. He didn't want to refine a weapon that could only be used once. The price would be too great. Therefore, the most important thing for him now was to find a way to alleviate or eliminate the destructive force. Li Qianfeng's late-stage, qi refining demonic energy and magic power would mutually annihilate each other. The resulting power would be very difficult to damage the demonic arm's bones. He would have the opportunity to repeatedly observe and solve this problem. After a day, Li Qianfeng's body and magic power had already recovered. However, because his blood and demonic energy had absorbed a lot of flesh and blood essence, the strength of his body had decreased by a lot. His magic power had dropped to the early stage of foundation establishment. Yu Xian's expression changed. Master, Qianfeng's current situation seems similar to our internal organ reconstruction. Lu Kuan shook his head. The two are different. Internal organ reconstruction is to transfer the essence of the internal organs to the blood and bones. Then, after the remaining organs are strengthened, the essence is transferred back, making the organs and magic power purer. Li Qianfeng's situation is to absorb the essence of the flesh and blood through his blood and demonic energy. Even if the rest of his body is restored, the essence absorbed by his blood and demonic energy won't be able to replenish it. Lu Kuan looked at Li Qianfeng, whose magic power had completely recovered. Qianfeng, your blood and demonic energy is now at the late stage of qi refining. If you want to raise it to the foundation establishment stage and strengthen the demonic arm, you will need to continue feeding it flesh and blood. The blood condensation stage is a process of blood flowing through the body and slowly nourishing the organs. Feeding your blood and demonic energy won't delay your cultivation. However, after entering the viscera forging stage, you will need to focus on viscera forging. Li Qianfeng carefully noted it down. Next, help me comprehend the secret technique. Yes, Grandmaster. Li Qianfeng listened to Lu Kuan's guidance. Through the Bone Treasure's bloodline network and the formation of the bone marrow cavity, he transferred his body's magic power into the bone marrow cavity. Because the essence of the flesh and blood had been absorbed by his blood and demonic energy, the shriveled muscles and blood vessels on the demonic arm were very weak. He could only mobilize the magic power of the early stage of qi refining. A piercing sound was heard, as if cold water had been poured into a boiling pot of oil. Li Qianfeng heard an explosion from the demonic arm. The muscles and nerves outside the demonic bone felt a strong vibration. Because the demonic bone was a magic treasure refined from an external object, only the periosteum layer had a nerve connection with him. His divine sense couldn't see through the magic treasure. Relying on his blood and demonic energy, he could barely feel the terrifying destructive power. Lu Kuan poured his divine sense into his eyes. He activated the golden eye ability and carefully observed the situation inside the demonic bone. The collision of these two conflicting energies produced a strong destructive power. As he expected, the demonic bone was unable to shake the magic treasure-level demonic bone and was forcibly endured by the bone marrow cavity. Lu Kuan motioned for Li Qianfeng to continue transferring magic power as he pondered. If it was the demonic energy in my body, I'm afraid the miniature formation in the bone marrow cavity would be damaged. If it were to happen a few more times, the demonic bone would shatter from the inside. Compared to the bone marrow cavity, the bone layer is the hardest part of the demonic bone magic treasure. What if I guide the destructive power to the bone layer? Thinking of this, he forced a drop of pale silver blood essence out of his body. It turned into a silver mist and sank into Li Qianfeng's demonic arm. Through the blood control art, he could more precisely sense the changes inside. To guide the destructive power, the structure of the bone marrow cavity needs some adjustments. If it's a dense and loose structure like a beehive, it should be able to enter the bone layer. Lu Kuan frowned again. But the demonic bone is different from the bones of body cultivators. After all, the bone layer is made of materials. Even if it can withstand the destructive power for a short time, it will be damaged after a long time. Even if the demonic bone magic treasure can add life force, it can only reduce the number of times the destructive power appears. After a long time, the demonic bone magic treasure will be scrapped. When I was in the middle stage of the bone treasure realm, every time I practiced the blood demon bone refining art, my bones would suffer a lot of damage under the violent destructive power. At that time, I solved it through the nourishment of magic power. The demonic energy of the bone transformation stage is specially created for tempering the body. It's incomparably overbearing and can't be used to nurture magic treasures. Lu Kuan fell into a difficult problem. If the bone transformation stage weapon he developed would be scrapped after a period of use, then he might as well rob other cultivators' magic treasures and force them to use it. What was the point of researching? At this time, Li Qianfeng's blood, essence, and demonic energy were almost exhausted. He had to spit out the essence of his flesh and blood. The demonic arm muscles returned to normal. He looked at the pondering Lu Kuan and carefully said, "Grandmaster, should I disperse my magic power and then use the cloudy body refining art to recover my blood essence and demonic energy?" Lu Kuan said without hesitation, "Yes, the blood essence and demonic energy needs to absorb demonic energy and circulate in the meridians." "So you wait?" Halfway through his words, Lu Kuan looked at Li Qianfeng's demonic arm and murmured, "The demonic arm's flesh and blood no longer has the fire attribute after being swallowed by the blood essence and demonic energy. It's demonic energy. And although the muscles on the demonic bone are still relatively weak due to the blood essence and demonic energy, they're still transferred from the body of a blood condensation stage cultivator. Their foundation is not weak. With these 2 points, your demonic arm can be self-contained and cultivate a body refining demonic art." Li Qianfeng looked at Lu Kuan with some confusion. Body refining demonic art? Wasn't there only the 5 elements body refining art? The cloudy body refining art he just cultivated seemed to be a demonic path of body refining. What was a body refining demonic art? Yu Xian seemed to understand. The body refining demonic art was a method to cultivate demonic energy that Lu Kuan comprehended when he was studying the blood demon bone refining art. In theory, it could be the same as other body refining arts. Flesh refining stage cultivators could cultivate muscle demonic energy, then bone tempering stage cultivators could cultivate bone demonic energy, then break through the bone boundary and cultivate blood demonic energy. However, a treasure bone stage cultivator's bones had been branded with magic power imprints and could not contain demonic energy. Even the muscle demonic energy required the assistance of incomparably pure demonic energy to cultivate. The blood demon bone refining art avoided bone demonic energy and directly cultivated blood demonic energy. At that time, Lu Kuan deduced that if a normal body cultivator wanted to cultivate a body refining demonic art, they had to meet 2 conditions. First, the body could not contain the aura of magic power origin to prevent the 2 from clashing. Second, the body had to have the strength of a blood condensation stage cultivator to be able to withstand the more ferocious energy of demonic energy. Li Qianfeng's demonic arm in front of him met these 2 conditions at the same time. Lu Kuan's mind came up with a bold idea. Li Qianfeng's demonic arm can become a separate cycle to cultivate muscle demonic energy. Then I can use the same method to cultivate demonic energy in the demonic bone magic weapon I refined. The demonic energy cultivated through the demonic bone magic weapon is different from the demonic energy in the body. It can completely nourish the magic weapon. Doesn't this solve the nourishment problem? The more Lu Kuan thought about it, the more excited he became. The blood demonic energy in Li Qianfeng's demonic arm is not under his absolute control. The muscle demonic energy cultivated can only be used to restore and increase the blood demonic energy. The demonic energy is under my absolute control. It will not devour the demonic energy in the demonic bone magic weapon. Find a way to cultivate demonic energy in the demonic bone magic weapon so that it can nourish itself. This is the right direction for a bone transformation stage weapon. Chapter 9:32. Yu Xian was puzzled when she saw Lu Kuan's excited expression. Even if Li Qianfeng's demonic arm could cultivate a body-tempering demonic art, it would only be self-sufficient. At most, it could cultivate to the foundation establishment stage. Master shouldn't be so excited. Li Qianfeng was even more confused. After a while, Lu Kuan sorted out the ideas in his mind and smiled at Li Qianfeng. Then, his divine sense came out of his body. Body-tempering demonic art. Li Qianfeng was stunned when he felt the horrifying divine sense. Then, he received it with rapt attention. The body-refining demonic art described how to absorb demonic qi, cultivate the demonic body, refining demonic art, and then use the demonic body, refining demonic art to refine the body. The most crucial part of this technique was the demonic muscle, refining demonic art. The latter part of the technique seemed to be the same as other body-refining arts. However, after reaching the complete body-tempering realm, this body-tempering demonic art had no follow-up. It was an incomplete art. With Lu Kuan's divine sense imparting, Li Qianfeng understood. The Grandmaster wanted him to cultivate the demonic arm's demonic qi through the body, tempering demonic art. Since there was demonic qi in the muscles, the demonic qi wouldn't need to return to the meridians. It could directly recover in the demonic arm, greatly reducing the risk. The demonic arm's flesh would gradually strengthen with the cultivation of the body, tempering demonic art. The demonic qi and demonic qi would gradually grow by relying on the demonic arm's flesh. In this way, the demonic arm would exist independently of his body and become a branch of the body that cultivated the demonic qi and demonic qi. After half an hour, Lu Kuan finished imparting the art. He waved his hand, and nearly 100 black stones fell in front of Li Qianfeng. They emitted an incomparably pure demonic qi. Qianfeng, you've done me a great favor. These demonic stones are your reward. Go back and study the body-tempering demonic art, and familiarize yourself with the demonic arm. The sect war will soon begin. This will be your biggest trump card. And in the future, you can... Li Qianfeng was stunned. Then, his eyes bloomed with surprise. Okay, you can leave. Yes, Grandmaster. Li Qianfeng suppressed his excitement and left the top of the tower. In the process of refining the demon arm, although there was a risk of being devoured by the blood essence and demonic energy, risks were accompanied by opportunities. With the demon arm, his combat power had greatly increased. Moreover, according to the unique train of thought of the Grandmaster's last sound transmission, he might be able to enter the bone treasure period in one fell swoop with the help of the demon arm. Seeing Li Qianfeng leave, Yu Xian couldn't help but ask, Master, is your problem really solved? A purplish-black grade 7 demon bone appeared in Lu Kuan's hand. He slowly said, Not bad. Qianfeng's demon arm has given me a great deal of inspiration. Continue to assist me with the deviant flame. I will refine another demon bone magic treasure. Yes, Master. Next, with the help of the primordial yang earth fire, Lu Kuan used the same method to separate the 7th grade demon bone into gray, black, and purple lumps. The only difference was that the purple material was refined into a wide, flat, and short hollow bone. The structure of the bone marrow cavity was wider than any of the previous bones in the demon arm. Then, a few dark red herbs appeared. This sawtooth-shaped herb was very famous among high-level demonic cultivators. It was called the demon dragon herb and had the strongest capacity for demonic patterns. The demonic patterns outside the bone marrow cavity were a combination of sturdy formations and some unique miniature formations. They were the basic formations of the demon bone magic treasure. Yu Xian, reduce the intensity of your normal dermic true fire. After speaking, Lu Kuan dipped his finger in the liquid of the demon dragon herb and drew on the surface of the hollow bone. At the same time, he opened his mouth and forced out a ball of bright silver blood essence. It turned into countless threads and surged into the bone marrow cavity. His train of thought was very clear. There needs to be an additional layer of structure outside the bone marrow cavity. On one hand, it will guide and disperse the destructive power. On the other hand, it will allow the demon bone to produce new demonic energy so that it can nurture and repair itself. Golden light flashed in Lu Kuan's eyes. Then, the best way to create this layer of structure is to create internal muscles in the bone marrow cavity. When Lu Kuan was used as a material by Old Demon Pang, he had once constructed the internal muscles of the bones so that he could control the body of bones. Now, the muscles that he had constructed inside the demon bone magic treasure could not only help the bone marrow cavity withstand some of the destructive power, but also use the unique structure of the muscle fibers to guide the destructive power and let it flow into the bone layer. Even if the internal muscles were damaged, Lu Kuan could still transfer his own flesh and blood essence to replenish them. More importantly, the internal muscles could also cultivate the demonic energy of the muscles. Thoughts flashed through his mind. Lu Kuan controlled the blood essence and gradually constructed a blood vessel network in the gaps of the demonic patterns. With the blood vessel network, he could transfer his flesh and blood essence and construct the internal muscles. He had refined his bone to be wide so that there would be enough space for the internal muscles. Because he was only refining a piece of bone, Lu Kuan quickly completed the construction of the demonic patterns and blood vessel network. Next, the refinement of the bone layer was basically the same as before. However, in order to facilitate the transfer of the blood essence, Lu Kuan made some changes to the bone layer at the two ends of the bone. Finally, there was the periosteum layer. The blood vessel network of this layer, apart from imitating human bones, was also combined with the elemental spirit array. The flat and wide bone magic treasure was close to the palm and was very suitable for the use of the suppressing yuan palm. Thus, Lu Kuan controlled the blood essence and drew the corresponding elemental spirit array according to the way the origin power of the suppressing yuan palm circulated. In this way, this demon bone magic treasure could resonate with Lu Kuan's suppressing yuan palm under the activation of demonic energy. Several hours later, a piece of grayish-black demon bone magic treasure that was flat and wide in the middle and curved at the two ends, like a brick, floated in the air and emitted a strange aura. Yu Xian looked at this grayish-black brick and was somewhat puzzled. In his opinion, apart from the addition of a blood vessel network in the bone marrow cavity, the refining method of this magic treasure didn't seem to have changed. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, Yu Xian saw Lu Kuan spit out two balls of blood essence. One of them covered the surface of the bone while the other turned into a silver blood mist and seeped into the bone from both ends. Lu Kuan looked at his puzzled disciple and sighed. Yu Xian, the greatest inspiration that Qianfeng gave me was that demon bone magic treasures can form their own system. With the assistance of flesh and blood, they can generate their own demonic energy. This solves the problem of repairing them. After all, demonic energy will only destroy. As he spoke, a huge amount of blood essence energy surged from this demon bone magic treasure. Solid tendons emerged from the two ends of the magic treasure, followed by muscle fibers that intertwined and wriggled on its surface. Yu Xian's eyes widened. Previously, when Li Qianfeng transferred flesh and blood to the demonic arm, he could still accept it. However, in front of him was a brick-shaped magic treasure. Growing flesh and blood on a magic treasure, the visual impact was a bit too great. Yu Xian only saw the surface of the magic treasure. If he saw the internal bone marrow cavity, it would be even more unbelievable. Different from the outside, the bone marrow cavity was densely packed with muscle fibers that intertwined like a honeycomb. It didn't look like human flesh at all. There was no point of force. It It was just a disgusting mass of flesh and blood. Soon, this magic treasure turned into a sturdy, deformed muscle mass. Lu Kuan threw out a pile of black demon stones. The power of the void shattered the demon stones. Pure and rich demonic energy wrapped around the deformed muscle mass. Then, the deformed muscle mass quickly trembled like a strong and powerful heart beating. There was a dull feeling in the air, as if it was nurturing some kind of evil creature. The rhythm of the beating kept changing. After about a quarter of an hour, the surrounding pure demonic energy seemed to be guided by something and surged towards the deformed muscle mass in the center. A unique demonic energy aura was emitted. Lu Kuan's physical body was the 5 elements chaos demonic body, which combined the attributes of the demonic path. The essence of his flesh and blood could naturally match the demonic energy. However, the internal and external muscles of this magic treasure were a bit different. He adjusted the body tempering demonic technique and successfully cultivated demonic energy. Then, he controlled the deformed muscle mass to absorb a large amount of pure demonic energy. From time to time, he would also inject blood essence into the magic bone. After an unknown amount of time, a demonic energy aura of the early core formation stage came from the magic bone. Yu Xian looked at the deformed muscle mass and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He finally understood the meaning of the magic treasure's own system. It was through the transfer of the flesh and blood of a body-tempering cultivator. The magic bone magic treasure could cultivate demonic energy. Lu Kuan stretched out his hand and took the magic bone into his palm. He didn't inject any demonic energy, but carefully observed it. The muscles of the magic treasure have been compressed to the extreme. Currently, it can only accommodate the demonic energy of the core formation stage. However, this is enough. The demonic energy of the core formation stage is enough to refine it. After refining, the demonic energy will nourish itself. Isn't this the same as the bones of the bone treasure stage? Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with excitement. Every time it is used, the power of destruction will be dispersed by the internal muscles and transferred to the bone layer. The damaged bone layer and bone marrow cavity will recover after being nourished by the demonic energy. In other words, it will be like the bones of the middle bone treasure stage. It will be destroyed, nourished, and strengthened. As the number of times it is used increases, the magic treasure's material will become stronger and stronger. Lu Kuan looked at the deformed muscle as if it was a treasure. The magic treasure of the immortal cultivator is more powerful the longer it is nurtured. Mine is likely to be stronger the more it is used in battle. It is simply born for battle. He murmured, the magic treasure of the bone transformation stage. It is better to call it a war treasure. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.